start. We could run through some of the smaller items until we get the others. So I'm going to call this meeting to order at 8:33 in the morning. Kim, can you do the roll call, please?
Charlie Cox.
Present.
Yes.
Darren Elmore. Sue Baker.
Here.
Michael Giroux. John Griggs. Paul Jackson.
Present.
Gary Lambert. Carrie Lee.
Present.
Jim Richardson. And Greg McKay.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Great. Thank you very much.
Chair, Paul Jackson for the record. May we have the others marked as present as they arrive?
That's exactly perfect.
And
Very good. And for the record, I'd like to introduce Sophia Long with the Attorney General's Office. Raylene had a federal mediation hearing that she could not get out of this morning, and Sophia was kind enough to step in for her for today. So welcome, Sophia. I'm sure it'll be entertaining. So. All right. Next item of business, Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And let the record show that Darren Elmore is now present. Very good. Item number 4 is public comment. Is there any public comment in Carson City? Hearing none. Any public comment in Las Vegas?
No public.
Very well. Any public comment on our phone-in participants? Hearing none. Public comment is closed. Item number 5 is commissioner briefings. Is there any items of interest that commissioners wish to bring forward at this point? Okay. Hearing none. Go to item 6, the meeting minutes. The commissioners may vote to approve, modify, or reject the minutes from the commission meeting held on March 11th of 2015. The minutes have been posted on our website and are available in written form. Do I have at least to discuss this? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Anyone? And we can discuss if there's any changes in there. Or do you want to go if there's any comments with the minutes? Yes, go ahead, Gary.
I'd appreciate seeing they come in an email. It's difficult in the future.
Okay. Yeah, no, we've been posting them to the website there.
I understand that.
Okay.
For request, I would appreciate seeing they come in an email.
Okay, we could do that. That's not a big matter.
Commissioner Jackson, for the record, for
Yeah.
the sake of discussion, I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion from Commissioner Jackson to approve. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Elmore will second.
Commissioner Elmore, second. Any further discussion? Very good. Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, hearing none, meetings are approved. Item number 7, it's update on the details relating to a host agency for discussion. I kept it just for discussion. I didn't expect any action on this. I was aware that the commission voted that they did not want to do the host agency thing at this time, but that I could bring them back more information. Where it stands now is why we're limited to 5% of our administrative budget. We can't afford it as it's a possibility right now. A full-time position with them would be prohibitively expensive. There is a possibility of a half-time position, which we may be able to afford in the future, but at present we can't. Where I'm kind of going with this is with our audit is we have to address the matter somehow, and we could do what the host agency could do for us ourselves as far as processing the grants, having an executive secretary. In June or July, the State Office of Grants is going to do a half-day training for this. I think it's something we can do in-house as long as we're willing to participate in that. And we may have to do a couple site visits on these projects, but we're spread out all over the state. I think that's something that we can do also. And we also have a little bit of time. Assuming that our grant process and our draft regulations are approved here in June, July, it'll be the end of the year before we're even thinking about dispersing any money, or probably a little bit after that. So we have some time to work on this issue. So I'm proposing right now, there's not much to be done. We can pick it up after we get our grant stuff approved and the awards awarded. And we can talk about how we can handle processing the grants down the road. So, any discussion about that or thoughts?
So Commissioner Baker, and what was the dollar amount that they needed to see to fund the one position?
I think a full-time position with benefits, we were looking at somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000.
And so at 5%, I'm just trying to do the math to understand at what point our annual revenues would allow 5% to cover the cost of that position, so that, I mean, I can appreciate that we can all take little components of this, but it's so much nicer when there's one dedicated paid person and that's their job to, keep everything on track. I love the goal of that, and I love the goal of partnering with the federal agencies to help spur their component of OHV. I really thought that was a great win-win, and I can appreciate some of the concerns with that, but I think when you're right there in partnership with somebody, you've got the best chance of promoting their side of things. So I'm hopeful that we can get to the point where we can have a great relationship with the parks, and we could fund the position.
Yeah.
So what would the revenue we need would be?
$2 million.
Okay.
$2 million.
Yeah. For the record, Chairman McKay, for the $100,000, we need a $2 million balance to do it. And a halftime position would be $1 million, which is more in reach. And I think we could still do the partnership thing with those agencies, both state and federal. The host agency thing might be a little more integrated, but I certainly wouldn't say that we could not do that with our own commission.
And was there any discussion from the park side that they might offset some of those costs, or were they solid that we needed to have 100% funding of that?
Negotiations are still in progress.
Okay. Well then, I know we're not making a formal motion, but I'd still like to explore expanding or developing our partnership with the Park Service, regardless of them, overseeing us and seeing how that goes. Because you never know, they may be excited about that relationship and see some value that they didn't initially see and allocate some funding. I mean, that may not be realistic, but I'd like to see that. It's certainly not off the table, I wouldn't think. I'd just like to, get other people's feedback on that, but that would be like a goal I would have if this group supported that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And personally, for the record, Commissioner McKay, I agree with you. And I don't think there's anything precluding us from talking to them during this whole period and see what we can do better as far as a relationship and being integrated and, good partners and all that. Any other commissioner comment? Okay. Very well. So, for the record, Chairman McKay, we'll still continue to talk with them about options as far as having someone do that work with us, and developing a partnership and trying to get a little bit more support from them. But and I can report back whenever there's anything significant, that develops there. But for right now, I think we're probably going to, in the near term, go towards doing it ourselves. All right. Great, thank you. Any other comment on this? All right, excellent. Number 8 is draft regulations. I was, for the record, Chairman McKay. For discussion possible action, the Commission will discuss the status of draft regulations submitted by the Commission to the Legislative Council Bureau and discuss tentative possible dates for a properly noticed adoption hearing. I was pleasantly surprised Tuesday to get a call that our draft regulations have been returned by the Legislative Council Bureau. I think you will, and I know you guys got them same day I got them, Tuesday, so you may not have had a chance to really look at them thoroughly. But I think you'll find that they are 99% in line with what we sent to them some time back, with the help of our Deputy Attorney General, Eileen Palmer, and Sheila Lambert from the Grants Office. So we can't really do too much today, but we have to do a 30-day notice for an adoption hearing and do all the necessary paperwork, which probably puts us in hopefully a mid-June time frame to notice that and get that put behind us. And I'd probably tell you a little bit more. If the legislative committee is still in business at that period of time, the LCB has offered to get that on their agenda and change it from a temporary regulation to a permanent regulation. And it's all timing and how long the legislature meets and all that. But at the least, it'll give us temporary authority to spend funds. And then the November before the next election, we have to go ahead and just refile the paperwork to convert it from a temporary regulation to a permanent regulation and go through that process. So either way, we'll be able to operate in the near term and get done what we need to get done. So having said that, we can talk about scheduling future meetings in a little while, but I'm thinking probably there in early mid-June that we have our adoption hearing and get that part of it done, and hopefully we'll also have most of our grant application process pretty well done, and we may be in pretty good position to move forward on all that. So having said that, is there any commissioner comment? Okay, any public comment? Carson? Any public comment there in Vegas? Okay, all right. So is that satisfactory to the group that we'll just move forward on this, schedule it as soon as we can as far as commissioner availability and our 30-day notice, and we'll get these taken care of. So I would encourage everybody to read them pretty thoroughly. Again, it's very similar to what we've talked about and agreed on in the past, but you never know, something might come up. All right. Very good. Number 9, presentation from the Nevada Office of Grant Procurement Coordination and Management on developing the grant guidelines and score sheets for the grant award process. Again, we had gotten our draft grant guidebook and all that material just the other day. I know you may not have had a chance to review them thoroughly, but it's something that I would encourage you in the near future to look at pretty thoroughly. It really does mirror our old grant application guideline package to a great extent, but adds what the state and federal requirements are to the grant process these days. So I asked Connie to come. She got called to testimony this morning just to talk a little bit about this package. I expect you have some time before our next meeting where we'll really get down to the final details as far as the whole grant guide package. So would you like to give a little general overview there?
Good morning, Chair and Commission. My name is Connie Lucido from the Nevada Grants Office, for the record. You did just recently receive these. I'm not sure if anyone's had an opportunity to review them, but as you said, this is just a draft for everyone's review. I know that there are some issues. Chairman has already brought up the individuals being able to apply and the issue with the 501c3s. We recognize there will be edits and updates and are more than willing to do that. Would prefer to do it once, maybe twice, to get a final draft. So however you decide to do that would work best. I did want to just go through most of this, like you said, is very similar to what you have. Page 4 of the funding announcement. I'm sorry, page 3 is where it starts. It talks about the purpose areas. This is where you as a commission would decide each cycle what's important and what the priority is each year to fund. And so over there on page 4, you would just insert whatever that list of priorities are so that you have an idea of what kind of applications you're looking for. The list of eligible project costs and ineligible project costs, we took those from lists that you had previously. Whether those need to be updated or not, again, that's what you folks need to decide. Following that, you've got some eligibility information. Like I said, we recognize there's some things in there that will change. It's not typical to fund to an individual. However, I know this isn't a typical commission, so that's I wanted to just talk real quick on page 6, the application and submission information. It starts an abstract, just basically gives you an overview of whatever your applicant wants to do. On page 7 starts a project narrative. A is the cover sheet, which was still part of your previous application. It's just a different way of putting it in here so you can make it one packet that comes to you for review. B, C, and D, actually B through F, they all have Roman numerals with direction of what was expected to be seen in those Roman numerals. That information was taken from something that was given to us for points, grant application, evaluation, criteria, and scoring.
It was Charlie's score sheet.
Yes. Okay. So we looked at that and tried to form what that narrative may look like, dependent upon what you were looking to score. So just keep in mind, when you decide or whatever it is you do, when you change those Roman numerals, you then need to change the page 10, the scoring sheet.
Okay.
Your scoring sheet should always match whatever it is you're asking them to fill out so that you have a matrix to be able to score it. And that's, I guess I will address the elephant in the room as well, as the process of scoring. We recommend that the application is submitted one time to your grants committee, or however you determine through your AG that that's the way you want to do it. The evaluation or the scoring should occur using the matrix that's put out at the same time as your announcement. And then they should be ranked according to what their score is. And then in an open meeting, you would give each of those applicants an opportunity to present or answer questions on the application that they submitted. Each commissioner at that meeting would have a fund list, and basically each commissioner would rank how they want to score, or how they want to fund each of those applications, and then it's calculated, and then that's your list of projects you fund. So each commissioner has one opportunity to rank them, and then it's combined for an overall ranking.
And at that
That's
point,
how we would recommend doing it.
Okay. And Chairman McKay, for the record, as far as the grant committee goes, I'm assuming that everyone would like to participate in the grant scoring process.
Paul Jackson, for the record, I would assume it's a committee of the whole.
Yeah, I would. I mean,
Okay.
any objections from anyone? I'm sure.
I don't know how you do that with open meeting laws, but, I mean, maybe it's just a long day. I don't know. But if you pull your whole commission together, then you've got to talk about open meeting law.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's nothing new. So I take it kind of the process is now that, all right, we send out an advertisement. All applicants have like 60 days to get it back to you. You check it for completeness, legality, all that. And there's probably some back and forth there. Encourage they can call you if they have questions on the application, and you can try to work with them on that. But if they're not complete by the time they're supposed to be done, they get kicked out, basically.
I will tell you the standard state process is they make an application, and that's how their application is.
Okay.
If they want to submit 4 applications before the deadline, then we would take the latest application. But there's typically not communication, and only because it negates the competitiveness of it. If you look at NRS in the procurement and competitive, there's no communication in between that application time.
Okay, all right.
Paul, Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
Paul Jackson, for the record. Can we, and he's my concern. A lot of people who are going to be applying for these grants have never applied for a grant before. It's not something they're used to doing. Can we build something into the system that would allow either before the grants, I'll give you an example. Say somebody comes here and says, I've never done a grant before. I'm really not sure how to do this. Can we get you to meet with us before the grant? Is that feasible? Is that reasonable?
So federal agencies will do something similar.
Okay.
What they'll have is they'll allow for question periods. So you're submitting a question
Okay.
to the commission or to this grant review team, however it goes. In the federal and state world, we submit a request or a question to the feds, and then sometime before the end of the application period, a frequently asked question is posted. What you have to be careful of is that whatever information you've given to Sally Joe on the street, you want everyone to have that same information. So that's the point in Sally asking the question and then the commission making sure everyone gets that question as well as the answer. So they've done it in forms of frequently asked questions. I just put that in my list. I can add some language about a frequently asked, if that's something you want to do. There's also been opportunities where basically the commission or someone, your designee, would do like a technical assistance phone call. So you would put out there an 800 number or some sort of way to contact, and then people can call in, and you can go through the application and the expectations and allow for questions and answers. But then it's transparency. It's open to everyone to either call in or not call in. Would that kind of answer it?
Obviously, the ideal would be if somebody makes a simple mistake on their application,
absolutely.
just send it back and get it. But obviously, that's not that easy to do. And I'm just trying to find a way to make it easy for smaller entities. Because we're still allowing, we're still giving people under $10,000 a little bit easier time, right? Is that still in there? Or does that get kicked out?
No, it's pretty. They can apply for any amount. The unders don't get really any special treatment over the others. It's equal.
So in your commission language bylaws, whatever it is, you fund for under a certain amount that don't have to apply through the grant process.
We don't have
Okay,
bylaws.
that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there was some discussion of that, and Paul Jackson for the record, some discussion of that for the police grants, that there would be a
threshold.
I think it was Sheriff Lee that asked that there be a fund that they could go to for overtime, for special projects or something.
I know I keep referencing Homeland Security Commission, but they do, they have quite a bit of regulation, and they've been doing this a while. With millions of dollars each year, and one of the things their chief does have is some designated fund that does not have to go through the commission because it's done in small amounts of money. So,
Okay.
And for the record, Chairman McKay, so say we have some mechanism where they can ask questions about the process or the application. Is that something we do jointly with the grants office, or the grants office can do that on their own as far as the application goes?
I would say that you want to make sure that you have a technical. I mean, I can read till as long as the day is, but I don't have the technical knowledge that you folks have about your business.
So we could do it jointly.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Publicly noticed and everything
Yeah.
else. Okay.
That would be fine.
Commissioner Elmore.
Commissioner Elmore, for the record, I guess I'm curious if we're looking to have a 60-day window. I would assume that we would have a standard commission meeting within that 60 days. And could we have somebody from your office here, and that is an opportunity for somebody to ask questions while the application period
Absolutely.
is open? It's the standard.
Absolutely. It's
agendized.
the same type of question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as long as we have a meeting within that window
You
while
can
the
do that.
application is open, and obviously not like the last week, or so people could ask good questions and adjust.
Yeah, something like 2 or 3 weeks in or something.
Right. Or
So
halfway.
Through would be.
To Commissioner
This
Jackson
is
for the
Commissioner
record.
Cox.
Hang on one sec.
Do we have to put that in our regulations that we have a meeting 14 days prior?
I don't think it's necessarily a regulation, but when you would put together the announcement, you
Okay.
would put all of those dates and expectations in the announcement.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Cox?
I guess I'm a little confused about this discussion. I thought we were talking about applications that were submitted incomplete, and I thought that the applications get sent to the office, that they will determine whether they're complete or not before they give them to us. So then why are we getting involved in determining whether they're complete applications or not?
For the record, Chairman Kay, if at the end of 60 days that application's incomplete, it's rejected. We're just talking about if people, during the application period, if they have some questions, that they have a mechanism to talk to the commission and the grants office to produce a better grant application. That's all we're talking about now.
I understand that part, but I thought the discussion started about a way to prevent it from being rejected because it was incomplete.
Mm-hmm.
Some lack of information that was on it. So I guess I'm just confused about the 2 points here.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm working through that process. Just give me a minute.
This is Commissioner Elmer. I do think that it's foreseeable that
They'll be missing pieces.
Club X, who's never done a grant request, who's going to come with a very worthwhile project, is going to get caught up in dotting I's and crossing T's, where the intent is good, they have all the information, but there's a clerical error. I see that as a potential hurdle.
I'm trying to, like I said, just work through the process to see if you would be restricting the competitiveness. But if we were doing it for each, then I don't see how that would be restricting the competitiveness.
We wouldn't want to bog the system either, right? We
Right.
don't want you.
Right. I will tell you, in my experience, again, it's mostly with federal money, but there are components, there are pieces that have to be attached, but maybe they didn't like something, the way something was written, they didn't like the budget, they didn't this. They'll elect sometimes to fund it and then work with the agency to adjust their funding after they've determined that they wanted to award it. So I guess that wouldn't really be an incomplete.
Mr. Commissioner, for the record, could it potentially be a recommendation on accepted applications and
Conditions?
here's a list of ones that we would normally reject, and these are the reasons why, and then the commission can look at those.
You could.
So we wouldn't basically be looking at them all, but in two subsets.
You could.
Recommended pass and a recommended fail, but this is why they fail.
Yeah, and then
So then the commission could say, well, they failed simply because this, right?
I would say that it's probably cleaner to do it the way that you folks had initially talked about doing it, is if it comes into the office incomplete, it just gets rejected. That would have to be something that is clarified through our administration, that I would be able to make that recommendation, but I don't see where it changes any of the competitiveness if you're doing it for everybody. So,
Commissioner Jackson, I have a question, and I don't know whether it's to you or the AG would be better equipped to answer this question. But if a commissioner who is not voting on a particular grant, but works with a particular organization to help them put their grant together, and does all the normal or all the required notifications, would that be, is that feasible? Is that allowed?
if you're not voting?
If you're not, if you, a commission says organization X, which you may or may not be a member of, is putting in a grant, and I'm going to help them put their grant together, but because I'm helping them put their grant together, I'm not going to vote on that grant. Is that legal? Is that doable?
Yes, that would be correct.
That would be okay to
You
do.
can help them put the grant together and just not vote.
Okay. So then that would help prevent some of the, especially with the smaller organizations.
Yes. Yes. But then, this is Connie Lucido for the record, I apologize. But you don't necessarily want to negate your vote either. You have to be careful about doing that.
I'm just trying to wear
okay.
suspenders in the belt.
All right.
This is Commissioner Baker. I have a separate question. I thought the NRS even outlined that the non-voting members had to review and score before, and I don't know that I see that in this process. Is it in there? I missed it.
I know we had the understanding in our draft regulations. It's in there. So
No, this is Connie Lucido for the
Yeah.
record. It's not in this.
it's not in this grant
It's not in this
guideline, but we may have to add a little bit of language.
Absolutely.
Okay.
If you could add that language in there when you're doing your edits, that would be,
Okay.
or a bullet, this is where it needs to be added.
Commissioner
Go ahead.
Jackson, it kind of brings me back to my question again, and maybe the AG can jump in on this. If an agency is putting in a request for a grant and they're a non-voting member, should they be allowed to score it?
No.
It mirrors your same issue.
Can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way the regulations are written, agencies can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it,
Commissioner Elmore.
This is Commissioner Elmore. I mean, this brings up my favorite point, that we have these non-voting advisors who don't participate, who will be scoring these blindly, uninformed. And so it begs us back to the question, we either need to get these people on board or do something else, because quite honestly, we have one or two that participate. One's here every time. But we have to address this. We either
Yeah.
have to get them on board, or we're going to suffer because
Yeah.
we're carrying a bunch of dead weight.
Yeah. For the record, Chairman McKay, Raylene Palmer and I have had some discussions, and she's discussed this with the Commission on previous occasions, that we're going to make some efforts in the very near future to engage all the non-voting advisors, make them aware of their statutory responsibility, that they will have this grant guidebook with all its direction, and they can score off of that. And the ones that don't, well, we'll have to deal with that down the road. I'm not sure how that'll all go, but they will get a chance to look at it, and they will also check for completeness, compliance on the applications, just like you would, I guess, if I read the language right. And they would score independently, and you would, put up a matrix of how all those grants did according to the non-voting advisors, and that we would take their scores in an advisory capacity, that we would independently score them ourselves, and we have the ability to fund or not fund when we're done. We can't change our grant scores, even if people come in at last meeting and give a presentation or clarification. We can't change our grant score from what we did independently before, but we do have the ability to fund or non-fund, if my understanding is correct. So.
You would have, so during that commission meeting that you allow for the questions and answers or presentations, after those are completed, we would recommend a ranking sheet done by each commissioner, and that's where you would have the opportunity to say fund or not fund.
Okay, go ahead.
A longer process than that, but
okay,
that's the...
All right, a little twist that I wasn't aware of there, So we will, at that meeting, we'll have our independent scores. Those will be posted or whatever for people to see. And after any potential discussion by any applicant, we can rank individually. And then we will have a cumulative score, and then we can approve that ranking or reject some based on that ranking.
And I will tell you, I have seen, again, in the Homeland Commission meeting, they've done, it's the same process. So each of their commissioners rank, they get an aggregated amount or rank list, and then they show where that fund ends and the process or the projects that aren't being funded. And the negotiation that then occurs in that room is incredible, because someone up here that is funded for something says, you know what, I think I could do without this component. And so then it frees up some money, and then they fund typically 3 or 4 projects further down in that list because the negotiation that occurs in an open meeting. So
that could be pretty wild. And I thought before, for the record, Chairman McKay, that they would have their application would have a funding amount to it. Say like, all right, we want $50,000, and there might be a second line that says, well, we could really live with $35,000, and that's part of that.
No.
Well, I know it was something that we had talked about in a previous meeting. If there was a lower level they could accept, then there'd be some of that negotiation. But you say now that after we independently score, we hear presentations from people for whatever purpose, then we individually rank them, and then that's accumulated, and then we can discuss what to fund and not fund based on that. We can vote it up or down.
Commissioner Jackson, for the record, each individual thing will come out, and we can, regardless of its ranking or scores, we can vote it up or down. And that might be based on what we believe is a priority. I mean, a project may come up and score really well, but it doesn't fit into our priority, and a project that scores slightly less could be a real priority for us. We can, and we have X amount of money, we can vote the lowest scoring project to be funded and the highest scoring one not to be.
Correct? Yes or no?
If you wanted to do that in an open meeting, you could certainly try to do that without any backlash. However, one way to avoid that is to make sure that you're very clearly in your announcement telling them what the priority is and making the scoring coincide with that.
Yeah. And for the record, Chairman McKay, somewhere along this whole process, I think I was told that if there was a ranking there by our scores, that we could not jump a project to fund something lower than them. We would be forced to just say, we're going to do 1 and 2, and we'd like to do 4, but we can't.
The point in doing it this way, this transparent ranking, is to show that you are providing for the competitive process. And so if you do the whole process and then you still don't fund the way that you ranked, then you're negating the competitive process. And that's the short and long of it.
Mr. Elmore, I mean, here's my concern. I can hand you a piece of paper that's nothing but I's and T's, and I can dot all my I's and cross all my T's, but it speaks nothing to the intent or the value of the project, which is, I think, where Commissioner Jackson, certainly where my concerns are. Somebody can hand you a really pretty, polished grant application, but it shouldn't necessarily have more value just because it's polished and pretty than another one who really touches the mission of the commission and the intent of this program. And I think that's the struggle that we're having, that I certainly have.
I understand.
I think that having a ranking isn't a bad idea, having a score sheet isn't a bad idea, but at the end of the day, if it's not going to benefit OHV, our job's not to fund it.
This is Connie Lucido for the record. If your matrix for scoring provides points for polished and pretty, then that's part of the process. But if your ranking does not provide points for polished and pretty and simply is looking at the mission and the scope and the work that's being done in the project, you're accomplishing that goal.
Good answer. Chairman McKay for the record, so I think it shows how critical these grant guidelines will be so we can clearly identify what we want to get funded should reflect the score sheets and make our decisions easier. So hopefully today we'll get a good start on that. I'm sure we'll have to polish it another time or two.
Absolutely. This is Connie Lucido for the record. The information that is currently in there for the matrix and the scoring pieces is just simply things that I pulled off of the previous scoring criteria. You can be as detailed as you want to be. I'm sorry.
No.
That's
Chairman Jackson?
it's just a swag at it. So.
First of all, I would, Commissioner Jackson, for the record, I would like to commend and thank Connie for all the hard work.
Yeah,
I know this
awesome.
It's difficult. It's compared to herding cats or pushing milk uphill. But one strong suggestion I would have, and I'd like the chair to consider this, that when we have this meeting, we do it as a committee of the whole in the same location. And we get, because it is so much, I'm sort of looking at the folks in Vegas, and it's got to be frustrating because you can't really sort of jump in, and it's almost like they're just viewing the conversation, and the same with the people on the phone. So I definitely feel that we should have it as a committee of the whole in one location. Maybe no go to Vegas.
Yeah.
This is Commissioner Cox.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Cox.
Okay, but in line with what Connie just said, that's why the ideas that I proposed for scoring that she's put into this matrix are so detailed. And as she's saying, we can change those details as our goals change. But that's one of the reasons why, we went, instead of having 10 questions worth 10 points, now we have several questions worth different amounts of points. And in her matrix, it's broken down as to if they're not met, you don't get any points. If they're only met partially, you get half the points, and so on. So I think Commissioner Elmore's concerns could be addressed in this, and the same with incomplete applications. If people follow the matrix and follow what we're asking them for, they should have a fairly complete application. And there does need to be a way that some are ranked higher than others based on that completeness. That's a competitive process. And so, I've seen this work several times in the past. I've been on a lot of scoring committees. I guess where I'm a little confused is I know we're going to send our scores in individually and they're going to be ranked. So then, in the open meeting, when we have the opportunity to ask questions or hear presentations, then we're using the term ranking instead of scoring. And so I guess I'm confused there. It's how we're changing. We can't change the way they're ranked. We can only say we're going to fund or not fund. But they've already been scored in such a position that they've already been scored in such a way that they should be funded, and they're ranked in that order. So then, in this open meeting, I think that's just to clarify some points. I don't see how that's really going to change the amount that we can fund or the order in which we fund. I think it'll pretty much stay the way it's sent in individually.
Commissioner Lambert, for the record.
Go ahead, Commissioner Lambert.
I think that Charlie's on the correct path. Now we got in big trouble with not paying attention to scoring and ranking. The guidebooks and then be the final criteria. We're not going to end up in big trouble. We keep wanting to address, or certain members keep wanting to address, other issues that aren't a part of that score sheet. I'm horribly uncomfortable with it. What Charlie has done is true and correct to our mission, and to consider information based on opinion or breakfast meetings that are held the day of the grants is inappropriate. Totally inappropriate. I strongly feel that we need to stay with the scoring criteria. Thank you.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Giroux.
So if I understand it, we're going to score, which then the scoring basically turns into a ranking. So the ranking is based off score.
Mm-hmm.
Simple math, dictates where they're going to rate. One question, if we have, say, because we have X amount of dollars that's, portioned out into, like different pots.
Mm-hmm.
Say we have $40,000 to give out. Rank 1 has asked for 25. Rank 2 has asked for 20. And then the third ranking is asked for 15. You only got 40. So do you go 1 and 3 to make the numbers fit? And 2 gets bumped out because we don't have the money to fund their project, but number 3 gets funded. That's the only thing that I see is if you start really crashing a number, you could get yourself into either stepping aside the rankings or, doing, the uncomfortable thing. Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Cox.
In the past, the way I've seen that work is you ask number 2, can you do your project with the $15,000? And if they say yes, you fund it. If they say no, they withdraw themselves, then you can move on to number 3. But they would have to reject the offer or the amount of money that's left.
Commissioner Giroux.
Does that mean then all grantees need to be at that meeting to where they have that?
Yep.
Because if they're not represented, then do they automatically get, knocked down? And then does that create another problem with kind of what we saw in the past coming back? My only questions are, just so we don't get ourselves in, to where we're just cornered in a box and we have to go by a number instead of, like Commissioner Elmore, creating what's best for the commission, best for the, the state, and obviously our mission. So, little flexibility would be nice. I just hate having, to be stuck on that, whatever number it might be.
So, Commissioner McKay, for the record, it's my understanding that we would encourage all applicants to be present at that meeting, and if they're not, it's at their own peril. But that we have the flexibility when it comes to whether to fund or not fund, that we can have an open meeting discussion if the applicants are willing to work with us to have a better mix. Is that agreeable to the commission?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Elmore.
just Commissioner Elmore, I guess a couple of quick follow-ups. One, on the grant application, can we simply have them check a box where they would accept, will you accept partial funding? So we could at least get that information.
Nice.
And secondly, I want to personally thank you for the invaluable help in this whole process and recreating a wheel that already exists several other places. Invaluable help I wish we would have had years ago. But I also I hear Charlie's comments, and I agree that as long as our grant request outline and what we want is in there is what we want it to be, then I think we're in a good spot. But I think to assume that we're going to get it 100% right the first time out of the gates is a fairy tale, and I think that we do need to be able to adjust if needed, and that's my concern. I think that we want to get it as close as we can, but we also need to know that it's probably not going to be perfect. It's probably not going to be perfect the next time we do it. The statute has created the world of black, the world of white, and then OHV, which is a whole bunch of gray. And we have to live in that world, and to think that we're going to get it right and meet the mission, I think is a fairy tale. So, I've spent just a limited amount of time with the information that was sent out, and I think it's nice and tight and clean, but to assume that everything's there, I truly believe is a fairy tale. And I think that we're all going to eventually look at this and want to adjust to some degree the day that we look at this. We just have to have that ability.
Excellent points. Any other commissioner comments? So, Chairman McKay, for the record, I think, wherever we can put some necessary adjustment language in some areas to give us some flexibility. I think the box for will you accept partial funding is an excellent idea. And really, I think it will boil down to the grant guidelines that we can develop that will refine that package and get it to what we're looking for. It will help them on the application. It'll help us on the scoring. Larry, for the record.
Nevada Four-Wheel Drive Association. If it's incumbent upon the applicants to be at the meeting, I suggest that we don't do it just simply in a 5-day agenda thing, but perhaps done by registered letter to the person who submitted the grant on behalf of that organization, as well as much noticing as possible, because like you commissioners have problems getting out of your work to be able to come to a meeting, that could be a real problem for the user groups. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Elmer. I think that we'd have to state those dates in the request. I mean, it have to be in the first information. These are the scheduled meeting times and dates and locations. Have that all pulled together when we send the release the
Commissioner Jackson, I have a suggestion. When we do that, we should do it over a weekend, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because in general terms, it's easier for people to get off work on a Saturday than it is, except Mike and have to run your business. But most people can, the weekend's a little bit easier to get time off, so negates it a little bit.
Yeah, Chairman McKay, for the record, we could certainly probably do a 30-day notice type thing. Everyone, contacted by email, each applicant or whatever to make sure it's there. And I think it's a good idea that all commissioners be present. That time we'll all be in the same room for that discussion.
This is Commissioner Elmer. 30 days in today's world, the days just clip by. So I think 60 days I mean, 90 days for, my personal world, but, 60 days at minimum is
Well, from the time they put the grant application in until they're going to have that meeting.
That can be hard.
No, I think 60 days posted notice for dates for the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
This is Commissioner Cox.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Cox.
Isn't that outlined in the regulation, and so we will know slightly ahead of time what that timeline is?
We can, I think we can get a day because it's 60 days for their application. It's probably another month for the non-voting and us to get our stuff in. So I think we could probably schedule it out far enough, come to a date that would work, that we could probably pull it off.
Probably ends up being 90 days anyway.
Yeah. All right. So try to do 60 to 90 day notice. Okay. Very good. Any more questions of Connie, at least at this point, before we go into some grant guideline discussions? And I think we'll probably go back and forth when we're developing our grant guideline stuff with you too, if that would be all right with you. Any more input from commissioners? Public in either Las Vegas or here in Reno? Reno, Carson. Very well. All right. Item number 10. Should we take this shot first, Darren? This discussion of the public education outreach guidelines that will guide the Commission's grant guideline process for discussion on possible action. Commissioner Elmore, head of the Public Education Outreach Committee, and the Commissioners will discuss what grant guidelines and scoring components must be developed to effectively guide and score grant applicants applying for the public education outreach grants from the Commission. There is an attachment from the Chairman Elmore titled OHV Public Outreach Discussion to help guide the discussion, and there's some copies over on the table there. There may be a motion to specify what grant guidelines, scoring components are to be included in the grant guideline process to give the Nevada Office of Procurement and Grants further development. There may be a motion for the commissioners to work directly with the grants office on this process. So I'll turn it over to you, Darren.
All right. Commissioner Elmore, for the record, as the illustrious chair of the Public Education and Outreach Committee. Chair McKay asked me to give some thought to this, and as we get closer to the grant process, to hopefully hand some money out to some folks who want to promote the program. And so I just penciled up this outline. I will admit openly that I did it on an airplane, so it's in crude, rudimentary form. But it was simply who we are, what we do, why register, and then some of the things that I think we need to be cognizant of as we seriously start to consider advertising and promoting the program to drive some funds that we can then hopefully give out to people who want to do some worthwhile projects. So this is just what I was able to toss together. Some different channels, web, social media, radio, print and signage, dealers clubs. So a lot of this stuff we've talked about in the past or had to address. I had some questions to Chair McKay in regards to the existing OHV website as to who's maintaining that, the structure for that. Are we, the Commission, in control? How would somebody else who is going to be soliciting funds from us to do similar things be tied together? So I think it's a little broader than we think it is. But this is just what I came up with as a rudimentary outline for what we would need to see from somebody coming to ask us for money to promote the program. And I guess I would certainly be open to general discussion from the commissioners as to things that are missing, or really what we need to do is prioritize this or this concept so that we can then pass that information along so people know what to bring to us.
Commissioner Jackson, for the record.
Commissioner Jackson?
Have we looked into Facebook? Because that seems to be one of the most effective ways of advertising for the refractive to the cost. And can we as a commission do that without it going through the grant process? Can we as a commission take a little bit of money and do that?
Commissioner McKay, for the record, I believe if a successful applicant has a social media, internet type focus, that we can give them direction that they can maintain an account with our input, or however we want to structure it.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Elmore. I mean, there's no shortage of a marketing agency, if not most of them now will have that component where they will basically manage your Facebook, Twitter, whatever, social media. And so that would be another component that would fall under social media. But basically they manage it from head to toe. They're responsible for postings at whether it's twice a week or 3 times a week or 10 times a week or every day or whatever. But yeah, that can be managed by an outside agency for the commission.
Again, Commissioner Jackson, for the record, my question is, can we do that out of our administrative budget now to help try and get, because it is pretty inexpensive, and quite honestly, there's a lot of agencies that will do it almost gratis because we're a government agency and they like to have those in their portfolio. So, I mean, is that something we could discuss and maybe go out and find one of these agencies? I mean,
Chairman McKay, for the record, a rough answer is, I suppose we could, as part of our administrative expenses, do that in a competitive bidding situation. Although I think advertising is exempt under bidding professional services now too. So you were thinking as an interim thing to actually get our messages out now rather than 6 months from now. Our messages, it could be of benefit to us.
Right, Commissioner Jackson, yeah, I think you're absolutely correct, and I think I can probably name 2 agencies right now who would probably do it for very, very little, maybe basically just cost, because we are a government agency. We are attractive to those kind of entities because we end up on their resume. So I mean, there are a couple of those that would probably do it. So we'd probably be able to get, if we wanted to go out and do that, and I'd be happy to take a lead on that, or Mr. Elmo, be able to get that done.
Any other commissioner comments there?
This is Commissioner Cox.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Cox.
Well, I guess I think I'm kind of following where he's going with that. I think it's a good idea, and I don't know if the Attorney General's office, I don't see why as a commission we can't have our own Facebook page. But I don't understand. I don't know which agencies he's referring to and how they would promote us, but I think any promotion that we could get now, since that's part of our public outreach, would be a good thing for us.
Agree. Chairman Jackson?
Mr. Jackson, I'm sorry, the audio probably isn't that great. I'm just saying that there are agencies who would like us as a client because we're a government agency, not other government agencies supporting us. And I think that one of the things that they can point to, and when you're doing Facebook advertising, one of the things that they like to do is say, oh, look, we set up a Facebook for this organization, and organically they got 1,000 people coming in. But because we put Facebook ads on there and we went out and linked them to other Facebook entities, we managed to bring that up to 10,000. And that's something that they do. And obviously, if they can turn around, an agency can turn around and say, as a matter of fact, we took this Facebook from nothing to 10,000 or 100,000 within 6 months. That's something that gives them some bragging rights, and it's one of the reasons they would do it for free or for basically just cost. Hopefully that clarifies that.
It does, and this is Commissioner Baker. I agree. If we can do that now, I love it. Just hand them this list and tell them to go with it. What we would, I guess we need to ask Fraylene if we can do it, and if we can, we just, I don't know if you would know.
I don't think the AG's office would have a position on, on a Facebook page or how to.
No, if we could use the revenue from our administrative to do this now.
Yeah, I don't think they would have a position on it just because it's your, it's your funds. So I think you would determine.
Chairman McKay, well, go ahead, Darren.
This is Commissioner Elmer. I think that this stems to the same question, some of the same questions I asked you about our website, is where does the world of administrative funds no longer be administrative funds, and it's this general pool of money that we have to hand out, right? We're only going to be able to do so much with a 5% administrative cap. And we have other needs that are going to fall into that mailbox, whatever, right? So we're really limited, and ultimately we do need to know. We need to know where that clarification is, that this falls under administrative and then this falls into the big bucket. So I think that is a question that needs to be clarified, because we keep going round and round and round about is this administrative or not. So we need to know.
Okay.
And I also, while I absolutely agree that if we can get free advertising by somebody who does it for a living, that's great. I also know in the professional world you oftentimes get what you pay for. And if it is free, it's unimportant, it's at the bottom of the totem pole. And once again, you have to be careful, because you're allowing somebody else to be in control of your message or your brand or whatever it is. And I think that it's easy to say social media, but it's a big, big, big snowball that can go, in your favor or not. So I think we need to be, cognizant of that as well. I like free, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it scares me a little bit just having seen it go the wrong way.
All right. Chairman Jackson?
Commissioner Jackson, would it be okay with, or would it be agreeable to other members of the commission that maybe we put this on, specifically on the agenda for our next meeting, and we get 3 or 4 companies who are willing to do this, and let them explain how much they're going to, how much it would cost, if anything, and what they would do for us, and let's ask them, let's interview them, and see what safeguards, because I believe Commissioner Elmo is correct. We do have to safeguard our message. So we could agree at that time maybe to appoint somebody in charge of the message from the commission, or wherever way that we feel comfortable. But if we agendize it for the next meeting and bring some people in to show us what they can do, then that might be the answer. Would you be agreeable to that?
This is Commissioner Elmer. I absolutely think that that's probably the way to do it, particularly with social media, and we can certainly go down that road sooner rather than later. It's just a matter of getting the information out there so people know what to come with and are prepared. I'd be happy to work with Commissioner Jackson on pulling that together.
Okay. Mr. Calkins?
Larry Calkins, Nevada Four-Wheel Drive Association, for the record. Our association has been going through the same thing. Our Facebook page currently has the website pinned to it, so people can read what we're doing on our Facebook, which is by far read many, many more hits than the website certainly is, but all of our factual information is on our website. Now, with this discussion, Constant Comment is one of these companies that's out there that does this web page posting stuff. I don't know what their prices are and that sort of thing, but they put out blasts across the social media on some type of a periodic twice a week, once a month, whatever you contract with them to do. Now, on the commission's behalf, somebody's going to have to feed all of this information to them, and there's time and effort involved in doing that. So just things that we've come across.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comment, public comment? Chairman McKay, for the record, I see no problem putting this on the next agenda. If Darren and you want to put something together, I think we probably also have to figure out what kind of funding is available to do this. But to have 3 or 4 people come in, tell us what they can do, what it will cost us, how it will benefit us, cannot hurt. So we can agendize that on our next meeting and move forward. Go ahead.
This is Commissioner Elmore. I think too. I think we really need to get the questions answered in regard to who's the gatekeeper of the website. We can get people excited. We can send them to the website, but if the information isn't accurate or it's the right information isn't out there, then it's all for naught. So we need to make sure we're not putting the cart before the horse. And I see the website as a major component of our cart, and making sure that the information is accurate. Do we? I guess. Maybe this is the time to...
I'm the one that...
Actually, Ken's the gatekeeper.
Okay. So yeah, I'm just trying to understand the current structure of the management, because I know the DMV had originally drawn up the website.
DMV keeps kind of all the back domain, all that sort of stuff with them. I'm the one that updates it.
Okay. So we have basically complete control.
Complete control.
Fantastic. That's good to know.
Something to keep in mind that I can also do Facebook and Twitter and all of that. I'm very social media savvy, so something to keep in mind.
Be careful what you offer.
Yeah.
I'm just putting it out there instead of having a third-party company come in.
Right. So
an employee of the commission.
This is Commissioner Elmore. I appreciate that.
It would be easy for you to send me, maybe a list of, you could send me a list of 100 bullet points and feed those out.
This is Commissioner Elmore. I think I really appreciate that. I mean, I see. We need you keeping us agendized and meeting open meeting law and doing the stuff that we really need you to do. And this is my personal opinion, so that we can continue to function to the degree that we do. But yeah, we may certainly ask some questions, and I'm glad to know that we are the gatekeeper for our own website. That's nice. And I guess so. We need to look at this full list. I mean, and really come up with the priorities. Is there value in radio and TV and print and some of these other advertising opportunities, or do we want to just go down the road of social media, web, and that for the promotion of the program, so that we can get this list drawn up for a grant process that is coming? 5% administrative isn't going to be enough, in my opinion.
Oh,
It's
no.
going to be what we want ultimately.
Right. And for the record, Chairman McKay, the public outreach education money will be the better pot of money to do the job here, more than our administrative expense. But at least we could start with administrative expense and work our way out. Chairman Jackson.
Yeah, Commissioner
Jackson.
Commissioner Coleman.
Yeah.
And maybe this could be answered by you a little bit. Can we break it into bites? For example, could we say the first round of funding, we're going to just take the education portion, and that's all we're going to be funding? Is that whatever that amount of money is, $40,000, $6,000, but that's all we're going to be funding? Can we take it into a bite and just do that? So maybe do that early and then do the other ones a little bit later?
Chairman Connie Lucido, for the record. You absolutely could do that. You just put that in your announcement. I know, right? Or what you could do, and I think you had mentioned it as well. So in your funding announcement, you can say priority A is for education, and there's this amount of money in education funding. Priority B is trails, and there's this amount of money. So when your applicants are applying, they can tell you, I'm applying for the education pot of money, I'm applying for the trail pot of money. so that you're not running short and the trails are taking up all of, because they have the bigger priority.
NRS already.
Does it allow you to do that?
The statute.
NRS already prescribes this. We just
Yeah.
need to make that clear.
You just put it in your
in the
announcement.
application, and then they need to check which box they're applying.
Right.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, Commissioner Jackson, is that our funding process is only, our first funding process is only specifically for that pot of money and nothing else. We're not accepting anything else, just our advertising. Because my sense is that if we do that, we can probably do the process a little quicker, get that on the road quicker, and then obviously once that advertising's out there, that's going to increase a lot of things, including people coming in for trails.
This is Commissioner Elmore. I don't see how that will work with the language that NRS has. NRS says you have to spend these these amounts within these categories. It's already, the pie is already divided up.
Right. No, I'm not saying making the pie any different. Just take that. I'm just saying that the only grants that we're going to look at today are, and then we do grant process for the other grants later on.
Connie Lucido, for the record, you can have as many grant cycles as the commission determines they want to do, but I would be careful of that because somebody's managing those grant cycles.
Yeah, we can look at, Commissioner Elmore, for the record, we can look at public education and outreach first and look at that designated pot, the applicants, and then go to trails or whatever. We can do them in any order that we want, I suspect. But NRS already divvies the pie up for how the monies are to be divided up, is my understanding.
It does. Yeah, for the record, Chairman McKay, if we do a grant cycle, let's do it just like the statute said, and everything right to percentage and amounts and everything. And it shouldn't slow anything down as far as getting on the ground. If we do our administrative expense, maybe do some social media beforehand. Commissioner Drow.
I also agree with you. I think the biggest thing is to get that money out and to try to, and that can be part of our guidelines, try to look at something that's going to make the biggest impact, something that's, where you get the newspapers, wow, look what the commission's finally done. You'll get the off-roaders, you'll get the guys in the trenches that's paying their $20. They want to see something. So I think that's number one priority. I get that every single day, and I couldn't, tell you how many times, people just seem frustrated with, we're going on 3 years, we pay all this money. I haven't seen anything, and I don't have really anything good to tell them other than we're so close. I really want to stress the fact of trying to get, even a high profile type project, and that's where to get some media. I love the idea of the Facebook. We're doing that right now, and at the stores, and it'll give us something else to tie into and to promote. Like I say, a high profile project, and I think as we set the guidelines out, that might help us score something that I think people can get behind and rally behind, and once we get a little positive advertising, I think it'll create a wave of just everything going forward, and get us out of the muck and mire that we've been in for the last few years.
Any other commissioner comments? Chairman McKay, for the record, wanted to thank Darren for putting this list together for thoughts. I was going to ask Connie, you kind of took a look at this, and you've gotten a little discussion from the commissioners. Advertising, if we do grant, like we want to favor social media, maybe stay away from the traditional billboards, TV stuff. You might want to do some PSAs that are inexpensive or whatever. But they're going to, if we give them the grant guidelines, they're going to come back with some ideas and proposals for us, and we have to decide whether those are good enough to fund them. But I guess I'm just trying to get more to the grant guideline part of it here. So,
Connie Lucido, for the record, you can include suggestions in your announcements. So if these are the types of projects you're looking for, you can include suggestions. Looking for projects that do A, B, C.
Okay. Commissioner Moore?
This is Commissioner Elmore. I would ask all the commissioners, we all represent a category of users, and I think you really need to think about what's the best way to reach your user groups. Because I'm here to tell you that as a sportsman's rep, a social media website is only going to reach so many, because a lot of these guys don't even have email addresses. So there is still some value in print and signage and billboards, and I think that you have to take a hard look at your individual user groups, and we need to find and we need to check off and make sure that we're speaking to those people as well. It's easy just to say social media and website, but there is still value. It's why advertising is still so expensive, because there is value in some of this other stuff, and we need to make sure that we're not overlooking it.
Okay. Does anyone want to offer any more grant guidelines as far as the public outreach, education stuff goes at the moment? Commissioner McKay, for the record, so do you think we can further refine this a little bit as far as what we said today, and we will obviously bring it up at our next meeting for further refinement as far as guidelines go?
This is Commissioner Elmer. I think that we definitely need to revisit it, and as chair of this committee or in the broader group, I'd like to hear from each of the commissioners, where they think we need to be spending this public education outreach money, so that we can then pass that information along, so that they can then pass it along to the people who are going to be applying, and we can start to move in that direction. That's ultimately what you wanted out of this, I believe, from the beginning. So,
okay.
I guess, if we can get it on the next agenda, and the commissioners can think about, pick 3. I'm not saying that I've captured them all on this list. But where which of these channels you think are the most valuable, so we can pass that information along.
I had one quick comment.
Commissioner Jackson.
Commissioner Jackson, for the record. Commissioner Olmo, you had asked for $2,000 to do an ad in the licensing booklet that goes out, which is obviously perfect for your thing. Do we need to issue a grant for that, or is that something that we can say as a commission comes out?
We can make it a guideline.
Well, I think that's a great question, right? We asked that question at the time, and we're still asking that question, is do those types of opportunities to promote the OHV program fall into administrative, or do those fall into the grant process? And if we only do, and we spoke of this at the time, if we consider those in the grant process and we only do that once a year, then we're really hamstringing our ability to fund worthwhile things that come along, such as the NDOW on application books. So I think it's a great question to be asked.
RAG?
She may not be qualified to...
That's good.
Yeah. So I think you said you were in discussion with Raylene about it, or no?
Well, actually, Ray, for the record, Chairman McKay, Raylene wasn't our DAG at that particular time. I think that was Nathan, right? Yeah. I might take a stab at this answer. I believe we probably generally want to use the grant process to take care of our annual needs. However, I think there is some discretion in our administrative fund to do emergency items. And I'll get a better answer. I'll be talking to our DAG tomorrow. So are we leaving that every commissioner think about what different media would be appropriate for their contacts and the mix, and think about putting it in grant guideline form, and we'll discuss at our next meeting?
This is Commissioner Baker.
Yes, Commissioner Baker.
I just want to clarify the start of this discussion Darren and Paul had agreed to work on an agenda item and invite applicants to our next meeting to sort of discuss what they could do at what price. Is that off the table now, or is that still happening?
No, it's still happening.
Okay. And because I was thinking, based on the outcome of that event, may help us better understand where we need to go with additional funding through the grant process. But I guess in the meantime, we would need to know if, assuming they're going to charge some fee, we would need clarification that we can pay for it out of the administrative side.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
We'll get that answer.
Commissioner Cox,
Go ahead, Charlie.
last year did Nvohv put in their publication free of charge for us about registering highway vehicles?
This is Commissioner Elmore. They did. They actually ran, we got, I believe, a full page in the Big Game Hunt application book for 2014. Do not believe that we're in the one that went out this spring. But they did put it in there. They also put it in the fishing book, I believe. And I don't know if we ever paid them for it. But they ultimately did it out of the goodness of their heart if we didn't. But one of the treasurers could probably answer that question, whether they ever formally submitted an invoice and paid. But they did do what they said they would do, and we were
Right,
in
so
there.
I would think it would be important for us then to know what our 5% administrative fees are, and if we, because I think we all believe that being in those two publications is a priority, and we should not miss the opportunity to be in there at their next printing. So we should find out what that's going to cost us, and we should know what our 5% administrative fee is before our next meeting when we're giving presentations about thinking of spending money someplace else. I think those two areas are important for us to be in.
Okay. Chairman McKay will get you those answers. Very well. Any other discussion on this? Larry?
Okay, Larry Calkins, Nevada Four-Wheel Drive Association. In the long run, I think that the commission would be well served to get a publicity director working directly for them to relieve this. Somebody that can, excuse me, somebody that can put out public service announcements both to newsprint and to television. Those are free. The content, though, as they go out, has to keep changing, and you'll get your logo out there. And then that would be the person who would manage what goes news-wise to the website, to the Facebook page, and other output. But I think it's more than one person can do to do well.
Thank you. All right. Commissioner Elmore.
Commissioner Elmore, one more quick thing. I think, I don't know if it's in the draft stuff that we've worked up, but we spoke, I believe, last meeting about asking all applicants, where it's possible, if they can say funded by OHV dollars, or the project that's in my mind is the container for Sand Mountain, right? We were going to fund a container for Sand Mountain for the stores. I think it was for the BLM. I don't know if they can apply now that they're not a person, but we were going to fund a container, and then we were going to paint a billboard on the side, right? That was part of the stipulations, and so I'm not sure whether we captured it or not. If we didn't, we should. That
It's in this grant. It's in this announcement packet.
It is.
On page 14.
Okay, awesome. That we want them promoting the program.
How it's funded?
Correct.
Okay, yes.
Great.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right.
Except if it's the police and they're giving out tickets.
Chairman McKay here. I think we're going to jump our agenda just a little bit to accommodate a couple of guests that just popped in. Item 14 is the 2015 legislative session updates and any possible changes to the Commission's position on any bill or changes to authorization of the legislative interface for discussion or possible action. Commission may discuss and change position on any bill affecting them in the 2015 legislative session. The Commission may also discuss whether or not to make any changes authorizing who may speak or act on legislative matters concerning the Commission. So I'd like to introduce Peter Kruger and Will Adler of Capital Partners.
Should we sit here, Mr.
Thank
Chairman?
you for coming. Yeah.
Well, super at the big table. Chairman McKay and Commissioners, Peter Kruger with Capital Partners, and with me is Will Adler. Will in our company has taken the lead on our OHV contract and has worked virtually, it seems like, daily with the chairman and the and Assemblyman Titus and the rest of the folks that are involved in this process. So I want to turn this over, if I could, to Mr. Adler and let him talk about where we are. I think we're all encouraged. As you all know, this session has got about 30 days to go.
Thank God.
And we'll probably see a special session. It has nothing to do with OHVs. It has all to do with the budget. But nevertheless, between now and the close of the session, the things that Will's going to talk about are going to be issues that will be frustrating because they will look like they're just sitting there, and they are. And then all of a sudden, there's moments of panic, and then they sit there again. But that's the nature of the game. That.
Know anything planned?
Say again.
You haven't heard anything yet?
Well, Will's going to tell you what we know as of the moment.
Makes more sense on the way.
Hey, Gary. Gary, you're bleeding over in the meeting here.
Oh, that was Gary?
Yeah, he's an Elko.
All righty. Will Adler.
All right, so early days, Dr. Tice declared the OHV Commission was a failure and that it needed to go away. So coming from there, we are doing great, I'll tell you that. We have spoken to Dr. Tice at length, worked with her, like Peter said, feels like daily. Greg and I are down there talking with her about it. And we've come to some really good middle ground situations and compromises, and everyone seems happy except for, at this moment, there's a funding problem with getting, as written, the police $5 for registering an OHV.
Police and OHV dealers.
And, well, OHV dealers are actually okay, but
Okay.
the police, as written, it was written improperly. I think it was a mistake, not intentionally by Dr. Titus. So it was put into by LCB as written. So it declares currently that out of the $20 registration fee, $5 will then be taken and given to the police who registered the vehicle. Although there's no legal channel to do that as of now in the DMV. So they slapped a huge fiscal note on it and said they would have to make a new machine and get these sub-check books, and it was, so there was no mechanism for it. Yesterday I mentioned this to Dr. Titus, and she'd been informed already by DMV, and I just simply said, you know, as the dealers do, you should do a service fee on top of the $20. Dealers do a $2 or $3 fee. Dealers do a $2 fee on top of the registration fee, and they keep the excess, whatever they do on top of the $20, and then they can send that on to the DMV. DMV gets full payment, moves on to the commission, everything works. So the police will now just do a $5 on top of the 20 fee, keep the 5, send the 20 off, is the plan. I will not promise that this will go that way, because there's been so many hair-pulling moments and miscommunication so far because of either improper communications with LCB or other problems. But she is looking forward to making AB 217 work and making it a constructive bill for the commission, for the state of Nevada, and keeping everything in line. Hopefully it all goes well. I have a follow-up meeting with her today. But it sounds like we're on the same page now. The second bill is Senate Bill 492. This is the general large license plates for larger OHVs bill, where it allows for the transfer of money from DMV to the commission. That was another one that was just sort of clarifying and some oversight issues before. This now gives a mechanism for the DMV to pass money along to the OHV Commission. This bill went unopposed. Greg and I sat down in support of it, and it is currently in full support right now. It is one of those things where it'll be held up in Senate Finance until probably Friday's over with, because we know more about the budget after Friday, and then we'll get a date when that'll move on out of Senate Finance to the floor, then to the Assembly. There's been no complaints about that bill, and everybody's on board with it. So that was the simple bill this session.
Let me just add, if I could, just so the Commission knows, this is also the bill that allows the DMV to take their operating costs out of the funds as opposed to a percentage as the current regulations require. So that's a change too. That allows them to send. That allows, and you guys have talked about this. That allows them to take their cost and then return the excess, which, as Will said, is not in statute. So just to be clear, that bill does both. It does the piece that is going to happen regardless is the piece on the large OHVs. That is Chairman Ellison's part, and that will be there. Then the other two provisions are the ones that so far have gone unopposed. That's a report.
Commissioner Jackson, for the record. Thank you, Mr. Adler. Could you? Not everybody on the commission or on the public is really aware of the process.
Okay.
How AB 217 has moved from the Assembly with its alterations, and where it sits now. I believe it's in Finance,
Ways and
Means in the Senate. How that process works,
okay.
And how to give everybody a better idea of where it's at and how it's going to move forward.
So, Will Adler, for the record, if that's what I say here, but in the process of getting any bill done, you must first submit it to a committee. That committee must hear it by a certain date. Then it must pass a floor vote by a certain date, or the bill would die. To prevent that process, you usually get a fiscal note on the bill, which is what happened with DMV, and they retransfer it to a second committee that involved with taxation or something like that. So on the Senate side, it's Senate Finance, so that's where 492 ended up.
So it passes through the Assembly then?
No. 492 is in the Senate. It has fiscal impacts. It will gain money. It has a revenue stream. So it was able to get an exemption on the timeline dates and be moved from Senate Transportation to Senate Finance. Same thing with 217. Went through the transportation process. A lot of hearings on that. Did its workshop. And then because of its fiscal impact, because it will be collecting money, the commission and the registration fees, all that part of it, it got transferred to Assembly Ways and Means, which is the same thing as Senate Finance, just has a different name. So they're both holding there now, one in Senate Finance, one in Assembly Ways and Means, but they're, the one in Senate Finance is a done deal, basically. But 217 has that issue with the police funding portion of it, and that's why it is still being talked about, and we'll probably get another amendment in Ways and Means. So if that helps clarify any of this.
Paul Jackson, for the record. Basically what that means is once it's cleared the Assembly, it'll go to the Assembly floor, be voted on, and then it'll go over to the Senate, and then go into the Senate transportation right away, or is it going to
probably go to transportation first?
It's going to go to transportation first, and will be voted on. And any amendments that the Senate include in that bill, there'll have to be a conference committee between the Senate and the Assembly to put it in. And all of those things are time drainers.
Yes.
The ability for the bill to get through obviously depends on the relationship with the Transportation Committee. And I know Mr. Adler and Mr. Kruger have good relationships there, as do I. So it shouldn't be a big deal getting that through. But it's still not a done deal. It's not a certain... I don't want anybody to believe that it's guaranteed that AB 217 is going to get through. It's got a good chance. But
no, I would not guarantee that either, considering how much has happened already, and there were so many problems. I mean, yes, it's a roller coaster ride from heck, but currently so much work has been put into it, and Dr. Titus has such an attachment to it. I swear, she has come up and down on this thing, but she wants it to be a positive, constructive bill for Nevada, put her name on it, and be a champion for this. And I'm all for that because she wants to work with us now. And there is momentum to get it through, but nothing is a done deal until the governor signs it.
Paul Jackson, for the record, could you, I just wanted to...
Commissioner Jackson, go ahead.
Could you clarify some of the other things that the amendments that, there are actually amendments that we, as a commission, had agreed on, and things that we wanted to push, such as getting rid of the late fee. But, Mr. Adler, could you go over some of those other things that have been added to 217?
Let me jump in there, Peter Kruger, Capital Partners, to address Commissioner Jackson's question. Yes, this is fluid, just as, and I want to compliment and make notice that Commissioner Jackson's in the building almost every day, and he's a good resource for us, and we thank him for that. So the question is, because of how fluid this is in the process, and the late fee is a perfect example of that. Yesterday, there was a meeting between the director of DMV, Troy Dillard, and Assemblywoman Titus, and it was made very clear from DMV's point of view that should the late fee go away completely, then in DMV's point of view, you don't have a registration piece, you've got what amounts to as an operating permit. And that's a piece that, and remember that tied to those late fees is about $100K in DMV fees. So it makes it, an area that ultimately, and will bring, as we have and we will continue to do, as this moves forward, everything back to the chairman, and ultimately, I'm sure the commission will decide what they want to do when we really have got something to look at. Right now, as Will indicated, it's a lot of speculation. We can sit there and play that game, but it's not productive. So when we really see, as a result, I think, of the meetings between Mr. Dillard and the chairman and Will with Dr. Titus, we're going to be there to a point of seeing what this finally looks like. Now, we haven't had a lot of good experience with bills leaving the concept of a bill going from Dr. Titus's office to the Legislative Council Bureau, LCB, because they come out looking nothing like what we thought they should look like. But anyway, we're on top of it, not to belabor the point. It's just flexible and a good point. The other thing is some people think every time a bill goes to either Ways or Means or Finance, it's going to die. Some bills do, but not these two. So that's really the issue. Just all we can ask is be patient, and by sine die, that's the last day of the session, the last day, the last minute of January 2nd, hopefully, the bill will be out of the legislature on its way to the governor for signature.
Commissioner Jackson?
Can you go over some of the other amendments that were added that were agreed to by the commission? Because I know there was more than one or two.
Yeah, Will Adler, Capital Partners. What we started out with, Titus killing everything, removing all funding from the OHV Commission, making registrations a one-time fee only. So we addressed all that. We made all OHVs still have to be registered. We made large OHVs different than normal OHVs, which is fine. And then we also tried to go for things like getting the language of person for an application of a grant changed to applicant. Currently, that is not in there yet, but we are still hoping to put that through because even the good Dr. Titus understands that the more, groups that can apply for grants, whether they're state or federal offices or individuals, the better the grants on the ground will be. So she understands that as well. So that was another thing we were attempting to get through, as well as the late fee. So we've addressed the late fee. The late fee was $25. It was more than the re-registration fee or the registration fee. So that gave the commission sort of a bad reputation or a black eye in the public view, because it looked like, excess punishment if you're not up to speed on your registration. So as you guys voted on, I believe, or decided to remove the late fee, we got that removed from the program. So if you do not register your vehicle, it's okay. You can just re-register it the next year when you want to use it again. It seemed like a good program, but as Peter brought up, that changes the language in state statute and the DMV's eyes that is no longer a registration, it's an operations permit, I think is the title of it. I asked a few people, including Sean, to look in to make sure we would still get full reciprocity with other states, even if the name's different. Hopefully they'll get back to us on that. If we do not get full reciprocity from other states, it might be something to look into to make it, maybe not the $25 late fee, but maybe a $5 or $10, because I think a big selling point of this was telling everyone that Nevada OHV riders go to other states and have to pay for registrations there and fund other states. So if we don't get that reciprocity, I think it would be something to look into, bringing back at least a smaller late fee to make us in compliance, to make it a registration. So that is something, that we are still looking into. Hopefully, though, I think an operations permit could be full reciprocity. Have you gotten back anything from that?
Tim McKay, for the record, my understanding is sticker is a sticker, and if it's valid in the state that it's issued, it's recognized in other states.
Okay, good.
So I don't think it's a big issue. However, I won't give the final verdict on it.
Yeah, there's no.
Leo, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I checked with my counterparts in other states, and I heard back from Colorado. They said it didn't matter to them because they require out-of-state stickers or out-of-state users to buy a sticker. Idaho and Arizona, I believe, both said, and this was at the beginning when we were going to do a one-time registration, that really wouldn't have an effect on them. Same thing. If you have a sticker from another state, they were good with that. So,
okay, cool.
I never was able to find anything in writing about what constituted reciprocity in each state, though. That's what I was looking for.
Mr. Chairman, Peter Kruger. That's all fine, but the 800-pound gorilla is $100,000. And I can tell you, in conversations with the director of the Department of Motor Vehicles, without that source of income, or that revenue, I should say, they are going to put a fiscal note on, or continue a fiscal note. You have somebody who really knows.
Well, I have something to add.
For the record?
For the record, Heather Hawkins-Pancher with the DMV management analyst for the program. We are putting together another fiscal note on request of LCB. But not only does that fiscal note include currently the late fees, but the decals being issued at the sheriff's office and at the dealers. It's not just the $5 fee that, yes, is still a concern in how we collect monies from sheriffs, but if we are going to have the sheriffs hand a decal to customers or the dealers hand a decal, that is a change from what they currently do, we will have to put the printers and everything in these locations. That increases the cost of a registration form by 50 cents from the dealer that we currently work with. So that's where our increased fiscal note is going to come from on this.
Can I
how about Peter then? Paul.
Okay, Peter Kruger. In a conversation this morning with the director of the Department of Motor Vehicles, we talked about that very subject, and you're 100% right. And this is what I said, this is a very fluid situation. Another idea that has been floated, it hasn't been brought here because it really doesn't have any shape or form yet. So I will tell you what the concept is being floated. what you do with it, Mr. Chairman, and the Commission is, of course, up to you. But here's what has been proposed as an alternative to, and we hope, and this is where the sticking block is with Dr. Titus. It would be, some people call it NCR paper, a 3-part form. It's what the automobile industry's used for years. And the way it would work, the concept is that dealers, law enforcement that chose to, would have this book of temporary registration forms, let's call it. They would buy them in advance. So a book of 10 would cost whatever, or 20, or whatever the number is. And, for example, we have a dealer here. Somebody comes in, they fill out all the information on a 3-part form. The owner takes a part, say the original, that's their temporary operating permit. The second form is retained by the dealer or the law enforcement. The third part is with all the necessary information is sent to DMV, who processes it like they do now, and then sends, after, if all the information is correct, sends the registration sticker just like they do now. But the customer walks away with a temporary permit that very moment and is able to operate it for, I don't know what, 10 days, whatever it would be, 20 days, something.
Month, whatever. Yeah.
So again, I please understand, this is just as goes on over there. Remember, it's sausage making. And this is something that's been put into the one end of the sausage machine. Ultimately, if it gets legs, we'll come to the chairman and say this has legs now. And the big part of that is the sponsor of the bill. She has to say, I mean, she says no, that's why there's nothing to talk about. If she says yes, and we have some preliminary indications, she might say yes, might. So anyway, that's another concept that would maybe reduce the fiscal note from the department.
Commissioner Jackson.
Commissioner Jackson, I just wanted to, because I know a lot of people weren't part of this whole process, but basically what we're trying to do, or what our people are trying to do, is make it so that the stickers are readily available just about anywhere. You can go to a dealer. If there's no dealer in your county, then the sheriff could, if they wish, take on that function. So that basically you don't have to do it by mail anymore. You can just go in and get a sticker, which is really important if you're coming from Arizona and you come in and you want to ride for the weekend or the week. You can get a temporary sticker or get your sticker, and that way, they're not riding illegally in our state, and means more revenue for us. Part of the other issue, and there was a conversation from DMV that I wasn't directly involved in, but it was my understanding that because of the increase in applications and people buying stickers, because of the immediate sticker program, that would more than compensate for late fees and for other parts of it. So I know there is a little bit of horse trading sort of going on about that. Thank you.
For the record, Chairman McKay, an out-of-state OHV user can, as long as it's not more than 15 days, can come into Nevada and do it, as long as they're properly registered. So just a small point on that. Any other comments, questions by other commissioners?
Yeah.
Commissioner Giroux.
Commissioner Giroux. I do have a question. I was, not made aware that we were working on sounds like a temporary fix for, our situation. But currently, I don't think we have a process for out-of-state
You're right.
users. And, obviously, if they're registered in another state, we're going to give them the 15-day pass. But if they're not registered in another state and they come into our state, I don't even think there's a process.
Another rubric.
I'm just saying currently, and I was going to defer to DMV.
Again, Heather Hawkins for the record. that's not something that we've seen in any of the bills yet.
Yeah.
Is changing that.
And for the record, Commissioner McKay, if you remember our audit, one of the suggestions was to get an out-of-state decal program going, and that's certainly something maybe after the rest of this dust clears, we can dig into how to do that. But presently, we don't have a plan to do that. It's on the to-do list in the not-too-distant future for a commission discussion on how we can do that. The DMV preliminarily has indicated they have no interest in an out-of-state decal program. So it may be something that we do internally, maybe with a NCR-type form in whatever outlets are appropriate. But that discussion's coming relatively soon. I figured once we get through the legislature, the grant progress, the draft regulations, then we can dig into what to do about out-of-state decals. Any further comments from public or commissioners? Mr. Calkins.
About the World Drive Association, the one that was near and dear to me, the priority to put a commissioner on representing four-wheel drive recreation. Yes. Where's that going?
Commissioner McKay, for the record, that idea was presented to Dr. Titus, as well as many other of the Commission's suggestions for legislation. The ones that took traction were the late fee and increasing the ease of registration by the use of sheriff and off-highway vehicle dealers. The rest of them kind of fell to the side. We also attempted, again, to change the language for the grant application guide in the statute from person to applicant. We tried to make it easier on OHV dealers with their bonding issues. Yeah, I guess it got settled or was settled already. But so we did give the whole list that the commission approved as ideas for legislation. The ones that took traction were the late fee and sheriff and OHV making the registration process easier.
So we're saying these other priorities are just dead.
Nothing's dead till June 2nd, but
Mr. Chairman, just to, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
To address your question, those are important to Will and I. Everything that was on that list. If we see an opportunity is a better word. And remember, these bills, or the one bill, 217, is going to move to the state senate. New committee, as was indicated. After we take their temperature, these are the kind of times to put back in some stuff that may be on the Dr. Titus, because really when it moves to the other house, while the sponsor of the bill, in this case Dr. Titus, it's out of her real operational control. I mean, she's still the sponsor, but she has less sway over the bill than she did when it was in her house.
I'd like to just point out to you, once again, Larry Calkins, for the record, point out to you in your bargaining and your agreeing and your talking back and forth with these commissions.
Lobbying.
The largest users, the largest group of users, and those that spend the most money on OHV recreation, by and large, is four-wheel drive. Way, way above motorcycles, way, way above three-wheelers, four-wheelers, snowmobiles, etc. If you want the four-wheel drive community, who are the big money spenders, to be involved in this, we think it incumbent to get this stuff attached to something.
Well, we take our direction from the commission. I understand that. I'd like to talk to you offline just about why, and not take commission time, to understand why that wasn't done back in the day.
It was forgotten.
Okay.
Again,
Commissioner Jackson.
There may be one problem with that, and I had discussed that with somebody and talked about the thing. It was brought up that since your group does not buy a sticker, that would be an issue. And I know that when I discussed it with you in public meeting before, you kind of, well, no, my group won't go for that. That might be an issue, but you may want to either lobby on your own or employ a lobbyist to help you to get that done. And that might actually be a better road for you to go.
We'll talk offline.
Commissioner Duro.
Commissioner Duro, for the record. I had another question. We kind of touched about getting a tax credit worked out, and I don't know where we're at with that. Is that on any radar, or did I get shot down?
It was suggested in a discussion with Dr. Titus, and if the opportunity presents itself, we can see what we can do about that.
Tax.
Yeah.
I want to point out that is like, you might as well say, let's carve swastikas in the walls of the building.
It's tax credit.
They tax like she just shuts down. No, that's where she blew up at me.
Yeah, but for the record, Chairman McKay, certain off-highway vehicles don't get a tax credit on trade-in, where everything else, boats, jet skis, cars, do. So that kind of was the line of that issue.
Only because in the Commissioner Duro, for the record, originally when off-road motorcycles, ATVs, and snowmobiles, because they never were registered, were never allowed. Where obviously boats and jet skis, because you register them, that's why they get a tax credit. Automobiles and street bikes, because they're registered, you get a tax credit. And now that they've technically forced registration on off-roads, now they're a registered vehicle. It really is, it's discriminating against them, because originally the reason they couldn't get a tax credit because they're not registered. Well, now they are, so I don't see why that discussion isn't at a forefront. In fact, it's a gray area, even if you look at statute.
Okay. No, exactly. Will Adler Capital Partners.
Credit or the credit back on registration.
We brought that forward, and that was another one of those things. I mean, you can only fight about so many subjects with one person. So we got a lot out of 217 already. This is one of those talks you have on the other side of the house, because there's so many things we've already, gotten into with Dr. Titus that I feel like she just wants to get it away from her now, and then we can focus on this.
For the record, I think if she understood it, it's not a tax. It's actually taking constituents' money and basically getting it back to them what's fair.
True.
And I think you'll really get. It's a positive. I just don't think they understood it.
Heather, for the record.
Again of the DMV, for the record.
And then I'll get you.
And I know we have had some internal discussions about this. Where we feel it lies is with taxation. And it may not even require any legislation, who knows, but it may be beneficial to get somebody with taxation to attend one of these meetings maybe, or go to them and have a discussion. It's not something that the department feels is anything that really that we can take on or we're in charge of. Would have to go through the Department of Taxation, and it may be able to just be handled with a discussion with them.
Commissioner Jackson,
for the record, this is nothing to do with the commission, and I know as a private individual that John Glenn, who represents your organization, is in talks to address this, because it originates in NRS, and correct me if I'm wrong, it originates in NRS 317, and he is looking, they're working on putting it in another bill, not 217. There's another bill that's more germane to this point, which they're working on now. And I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but I would tell you that that is very likely to be cured, and adding it to 217 probably wouldn't be the best place. It's not really. They may kick it out as non-germane.
And Commissioner Duro, for the record, I wasn't trying to. I was just asking where we were at.
Right. We'll get some more information on it.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Very well. Thank you, Peter. Well,
sure. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting us.
Oh, anytime.
Next time, bring donuts.
I don't need any donuts, Commissioner.
I'd like to go back to item 11. Thanks for accommodating that little change up. Discussion of the grant guidelines and scoring processes in the commission grant process for discussion on possible action. Charlie Cox, the head of the Regulation Grant Committee. Commissioners will discuss and decide what grant guidelines and scoring components must be developed to effectively guide and score grant applicants for the commission grants. There's an attachment by Chairman Cox entitled Ideas for Grant Scoring to help with the discussion. There may be a motion to specify what grant guidelines and scoring components are to be included in the grant process to give the Nevada Office of Grants Procurement further guidance. There may be a motion for the commissioner to work directly with the grants office on this process. So, Charlie, I can turn that discussion over to you, and we'll move forward.
All right, Commissioner Cox for the record. So obviously the Office of Grant Procurement has looked at what we've suggested in the past and implemented in their matrix. I think now, based on the discussion we had earlier about the public outreach and education, I guess I'm going to ask Chairman Elmore, well, all of us really, is do we need to somehow get our scoring criteria to have some questions, or do the questions we have pertain to all areas that we might see grants in, public outreach, education? I still have a concern on capital construction projects. You know, I think the suggestions that I put forth so far mostly have to do with the trails, and I just think there's some areas that we may be overlooking and that we really need to concentrate on before our next meeting. And I think it goes along with in our funding announcement on page 3 and 4, where we as a commission need to determine our list of priorities. I think if we're looking forward to getting, you know, as much time as it takes to do this, I think for our next meeting, we should come up with our list of priorities for this grant funding cycle and then start looking at really narrowing down the matrix and the way things are going to be scored.
Absolutely.
So I think that's what I have for us right now, is just to consider that. I'm not sure how we go about getting it on the agenda for next time. I don't know if the Regulation and Grant Committee needs to have a meeting and then present them, because up to this point, you know, we've had tremendous help from the Grant Procurement and the Office of Criminal Justice, and they've really done a lot of our work for us. So now I think, as a commission, we need to really finalize this to get it. You know, we keep saying, well, what about this one? We need to kind of bring it down to some finality here so we can move forward.
Very well. Chairman McKay, for the record. I fully intended next meeting's agenda would have a lot to do with making sure our grant guidelines and priorities are developed so we can give further direction to the grants office and our grant application guides. So, and we can agendize it as a commission meeting. We can agendize it as a regulation grant committee as part of the commission meeting, before it or whatever. Whatever works for you. I think it's pretty much up to.
Well, I think it's important enough that all the commissioners want to be involved in it. So maybe we should have a separate grant meeting before the regular meeting, so that we can just work on those points and get it down there and move forward in our regular meeting. I think would be, especially in order to schedule the meeting rooms and everything that's involved, I think that would be the best way to do it right now.
Okay. Does any commissioner object to that process and timetable? Okay. Any further comments or questions? So I take it, Chairman McKay, for the record, that we would encourage every commissioner to go back after today, really think about their priorities in each of these areas and craft some grant guidelines that reflect those priorities and bring them to our next committee and commission meeting so we can get down to a list that we can live with and give adequate direction to the grants office so we can get our guide in order. Any objections or comments to that statement? Hearing none. Any other comments? Public comments?
This is Connie Lucido for the record.
Yes, Connie.
Would you want the grants office involved in that meeting or not?
I believe it would be very helpful.
I just wanted to know. Okay.
Is that safe to say, gang? Yes.
Okay.
And we sure appreciate your help. I mean,
That's fine.
might save us a month or two.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say use the word help.
Yeah. In theory.
Okay.
Very well. Anyone else have any comment on this item?
Well, then the only other thing too, which I've done a little bit and I haven't had really time to study, is just make sure that our request for proposal really falls in line with our regulations, because something was brought up earlier, about non-voting members being listed in here. So just go through and compare those two documents as commissioners and make sure that we're not overlooking something.
Excellent. Thank you. Very well. Thank you very much. And I want to thank Charlie and Darren for their work and work to come. I think we're going to get there. All right. Next item is a discussion of the state audit draft report. And I know it was posted on the website. I did an early draft report back several weeks ago. And I did an updated draft just like a week ago. So I thought I'd go through, and there's only a couple of changes in this thing, and I'll take your comments, suggestions, or whatever I need to get this back to the auditor tomorrow. But based on your stuff, that's probably not too big a deal. So I'll just do the recommendations, and they have three statuses here as far as the audit recommendations, whether the recommendation was implemented, partially implemented, or no action. And then you have to have backup explanation or documentation of why. So their first recommendation was consider seeking legislation that will allow the DMV to transfer the commission all OHV program revenue in excess of its expenses. The status is partially implemented. Completion date, hopefully June, July of this year. This was Senate Bill 492, and there's an attachment of the text of that would enable the DMV to transfer excess revenue over expenses on a quarterly basis of anything over $150,000, which is their reserve account. So that was the first recommendation. The second was consider coordinating with the DMV to obtain better program revenue and expense data. I said that was fully implemented. The completion date was this month. That the Commission has worked closely with the Division of Internal Audits and the DMV to come up with a format that more clearly represents the revenue and expense that the DMV reports each month and year to date to the Commission. This report also more clearly identifies the DMV expenses related to IT programming, salaries, and operating expenses. This report has been agreed to be furnished to the Commission on the first Monday of each month for consistency. And attachment C on page 12 is provided for your reference as a monthly report format. So any questions on that? Okay. The third recommendation was consider developing and implementing procedures to ensure funds are expended for OHV enforcement and public outreach. Status is partially implemented. Estimated completion date, I put OHV enforcement. It'll be June or July of this year. The public outreach, hopefully August of this year. So basically the text is, as far as the law enforcement funds, and I'll give a separate report, but the Office of Criminal Justice had solicited for law enforcement awards. Actually, Charisse today, the reason she couldn't be here, is she's meeting with her committee on the grant applications, and I'll give you some detail here in a little bit more on that. But we're planning for our May meeting, she can come and give her recommendations, and assuming that all is well, that we can fund that portion. The public outreach, it's connected to our grant process, and hopefully within a couple months we can have our regulations adopted and the grant guide and all that process completed, and we can go out for an RFP to solicit for grant applications, and then we'll be going through the process of awarding them at a future date. So basically we're working to get that done. So it's partially implemented. The plan is we get it fully implemented in a period of time. Number 4 is consider implementing a program where decals are required for out-of-state OHVs located in Nevada for more than 15 days or not registered in another state. Status right now is no action. The completion date's unknown. We've had some conceptual discussions with DMV, but this is something that we're going to have to, as a commission, address. I think after we get this grant guideline thing, regulation thing out of the way, we can discuss about how we can intelligently do an out-of-state sticker program. So, yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe I'm misunderstanding something, but if somebody can go into any dealership or sheriff's department and buy a sticker, what is preventing somebody who's from out of state, who's, say, going to be here seasonally, what is to prevent them from going in and buying a sticker?
Good question. Heather, would you like to?
According to the current legislation that's going through, it requires the same process that the dealers do. So they have to verify, fill out an application, verify the residency, the registration requirements, the VIN inspection, all of it. There's no change to the required paperwork that we are currently asking for in this new recommendation to allow them to hand out stickers. So sheriffs and dealers would still have to do the same process that we do as a department, verifying paperwork before they issue a sticker.
Follow-up question?
Sure, fine.
My follow-up question was, is it legislative or regulatory or in any way where somebody is required to be a resident of this state now?
Yeah, I believe so. I was just looking through. I think it may be regulation, which could be changed easier, but I don't know for sure. I was just trying to look through to see. I think it's going to take some action to do that.
Good line of questioning.
Commissioner McKay, it's my understanding that it's not legislative, that it is regulatory, and we can move to have that regulation changed fairly easily. So why don't we do that?
Okay, so we may be able to just change the regulation.
Correct. And I would like to go back to number 2 at the end. I just want to get to it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks for that suggestion. Number 5 was consider seeking legislation to have the commission hosted by an agency, state agency. Status is no action, and a completion date is unknown. We've had discussions, but I couldn't consider it partially implemented or anything else right now. It's because of the expense is pretty much a no-go for us. And number 6, consider seeking other funding sources to defray the cost of the host agency. Status is no action, and the completion date's unknown. I've had some informal discussions with a few legislators, and one thing that seems to be a common message is don't mess with the state fuel tax money right now if you want to keep your head on your shoulders. It's so contentious down there with the needs of Southern Nevada and Northern Nevada for funding for highway improvements that if we want to kick over the bee's nest, this is the perfect thing to do. However, once the legislature ends, there may be time for some discussion about the state gas tax fund and how to perhaps intelligently proceed with that issue. But right now, I got a universal, I'm going to forget that you even mentioned that right now out of courtesy, and have a nice day. So that is basically the report. And I can check on the regulation there, perhaps, and put some language in that perhaps a regulation change could accomplish that, and we will try to move forward with getting that done. Yeah. Yeah.
They don't have to be resident.
Yeah.
Can I come back to number 2, sir?
Oh, yeah, sure.
And it wasn't, Paul Jackson for the record, it wasn't germane to your point, but
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify something. On number 2, what actions have been taken, what are the actions that have been taken to better facilitate our understanding of DMV's expenses? IT program salaries.
Okay. Well, an attachment to the DMV report is this document right here, which met the state audit's approval for transparency and revenue and expense projection, and they provide this the first Monday of every month. In addition, probably once a month now, we're talking more with DMV about any actions that we do or they do that may affect any kind of revenue distribution or expense problem.
Okay. Yeah. Do we have any other control other than getting Commissioner Jackson for the record? Do we have any other control other than just getting a report? Can we hold up money? Can we say no, this isn't satisfactory? Is there anything that we can do other than say thank you?
At the moment, no, but I'd like to think an open dialogue of what the problem is and what we do about it exists.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd just like to
Heather, go ahead.
Again, Heather Hawkins, Fancy for the record. Our budget for this is approved through the legislative process. So right now, our OHV budget is going through that process, and I think so. That's who has the approval to allow us authority in any of the areas for our office supplies, for our personnel costs, and all of that.
That might not be a bad line to throw in there either, huh? Yeah. Thank you, Heather. Very well. With those 2 changes, could I have a motion to accept this letter to be sent to them tomorrow?
Commissioner Elmore, I move
Yes.
that we accept the letter with the 2 recommended notes for forwarding to the audit's office.
Very good. Thank you. Is there a second?
Commissioner Drew, second.
Thank you, Commissioner Duro. Any further discussion?
I have one. On the,
Yes, Leon.
I forget which one it was, about the host agency.
Yes.
That's recreation trails, not roads to trails.
Oh, thank you. See if anyone catches it up the food chain, huh? I've been chewed up before. So it's roads to trails or?
It's recreation trails program.
Recreation trail program.
RTP.
Thank you very much. Great, thanks. All right. A presentation from the Office of Criminal Justice. Oh, I'm sorry. Far be from me trying to ram this through. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very well. All those opposed? Very well. Motion carries. Thank you. Presentation from the Office of Criminal Justice Assistance for discussion. Commission will hear a report on the progress being made by the Nevada Office of Criminal Justice Assistance towards making a recommendation to the Commission for dispersing 20% of the Commission account funds for law enforcement purposes pursuant to NRS 490.069. And as I mentioned earlier, Charisse isn't present today. Actually, her committee is going through the grant proposals that were submitted to the Office of Criminal Justice for our program. But she did send me a little information, and we will get a report from what they do today to you real soon, so we'll know more details on the funding, the particulars of the funding, and et cetera. They had nine applicants for the grants that totaled $216,678. There was one state agency, Nevada Department of Wildlife, for $29,135. The other 8 were all county sheriffs in Nevada. No federal. So basically, today, these grants will be scored and discussed with their staff and peer reviews over there at the Office of Criminal Justice. They will have their recommendations completed by May 15th. I think you'll have your information earlier than that, which we can review at our May meeting. As far as details, I know there was some equipment in there, there was some overtime, but those details will be forthcoming after their meeting today. And as far as funding goes, if you take the January 1st balance on 2014, which was $404,699, 20% was allocated for law enforcement. That was $80,939. Our January 1st, 2015 commission account balance was $1,025,130. If you subtract the 2014 law enforcement balance, which was $80,939, the basis for 2015 would actually be $944,191.62. 20% of that is $188,838. So the total available is $269,877. And their requests are roughly $52,000 less than what we have allocated. I had a discussion with our Deputy Attorney General yesterday, Monday, about the excess funds here and what to do. She was of the opinion that they may still have to be dispersed, so there may be an opportunity later to do something in the law enforcement thing, maybe connected to public education, outreach, or law enforcement. Or it may be something that rolls over to next thing. We don't know that yet. We will definitely know that before we meet next time as far as how to deal with it. But long and short is, I think we have adequate funding for these grants. And we'll go on. Yes, sorry, go ahead. Yes.
If our account balance January 1st, 2015 was $1,025,130,000, no matter how you break it up over the 2 years, 20% of that's only $205,000. So I don't see how we can come up with a $269,000 figure here, bottom line. I think it can't be any more than $205,026. Because that's 20% of the 2-year total. That's all it can be.
Money has to be allocated out as of January 1st, 14.
Yeah, I mean, why don't you run that past one?
The $69,877 figure is incorrect. I think it cannot be more than $205,000.
He's not getting that the money had to be distributed on the 2014.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you, Paul. Charlie, the discrepancy is we have to have the money for 2014, that $80,000,
right,
has to be added to the $188,000, which is the adjusted balance for 2015, to get your 269.
If you take the $80,000 away from the 1.2 million, $1,025,000. I don't know. To me, it doesn't seem right. I don't see how it can be more than the total amount of
treat it as information. I mean, Raylene and I went through it, and she's an MBA and a CPA, so we can certainly check our figures, but I think it's safe to say that we can fund this and we can address it right down the road. Yeah, it's just the way a CPA would break the thing out, you know. Yes.
Commissioner Jackson, Commissioner Cox, I think what the discrepancy is with you is that as of January 1st, 2014, we had to separate that money. 20% of that money had to be separated, and I
understand that.
And whether we issued grants or not, that money had to be there. It doesn't say the money's collected in the year January 1st, 2014 to January 1st, 2015. It's what's in the account. So it doesn't matter when the money was collected. So if we don't distribute the money, then the law enforcement, because of the way it's written, gets to double dip. So they get to take the first 80,000 out, and then whatever's remaining, they get to take 20% of that the next year.
Okay, so they're double dipping.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Okay.
I'll do my best.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Any more questions or discussion on this? Obviously, I think you'll be getting an update soon from Cherise, a little more details of each grant, and she's coming to our May meeting to having a discussion of her recommendations, and with approval, we'll fund them. Mr. Calkins.
Larry Calkins, Nevada Four-Wheel Drive Association. Question is that on that report, you said there were 8 county sheriffs.
Yeah.
Did they list them as to what county?
Sure. And I could do amount and that. And I'll forward it to you email-wise.
Yeah, we get a copy of that letter and get it posted.
Mineral County, Washoe County, Douglas County, Mesquite Police Department, White Pine Sheriff, Lincoln County, Humboldt County, Lyon County, and Nevada Department of Wildlife. They were the 9. And the range actually wasn't Douglas County or Humboldt County was the least with 19,117, and Department of Wildlife was 29,135, with the majority of them all in that mid $20,000 range. So it was pretty uniform. Yeah.
Commissioner Jackson, good question. Are those finalized? I mean, can the Department of Wildlife, for example, ask for 10 years worth of advertising and get the extra 50,000?
If that was part of their grant, they may be able to do it. Although we'll have to see what they have to say. So. All right. Very well. Next item, DMV presentation.
Again, Heather Hawkins-Fancher with DMV for the record. You guys all have our report now, so
yeah,
it's out there before we get here. I don't know if you have any questions on the numbers.
This is Commissioner Elmore. On the salaries, I believe on the last report that we received, it said that, remind me again of the allocation, the percent allocation that the salaries is calculated off of.
We have 3 full-time positions that are paid on those salaries, and then we have 3 management positions that allocate 5% of their time for that year that are paid on that salary.
Cool.
As well.
So that was the 5%.
Yeah.
So that 5% and the 3 full-time positions gives you the 99,000, and is that for?
That's through
February 11th.
Right.
So, okay. Perfect.
Great. Any other questions by any commissioners?
Commissioner Giroux, yeah. I'm just pretty slow. So basically 3 salaries at roughly $30,000 for 2 months.
Well, no, you have the 5%. You have 3 management positions at 5% in there as well.
Right. We work on the fiscal year, so it's July of 2014 through February 11th of 2015 is what's
so
showing.
that's not just from January 1.
Yeah. It's the fiscal year for us.
Thinking of applying.
So
Yeah, no kidding.
there's money in each of the details.
Good. Thank you for your report.
Okay,
Thanks
and
for
I
your cooperation. Go ahead.
we did have a little discussion. I looked at as far as the out-of-state registrations. We do not turn anyone away currently. We don't base it off their address. The only thing is that the way the current regulations read, and for registration, you have to fill out the application. If you've never been registered in Nevada before, we have to have the VIN inspection, and then you have to have prove that the sales tax and everything was paid on the vehicle. So somebody coming in, just for the weekend or whatever, they want to get a sticker for that, following current process would have to go through all of that paperwork.
Right, Commissioner Jackson, for the record, the only waiver we need in regulations is that they don't pay the sales tax.
And if something were to be changed, current process still, they would get that sticker in the mail from us.
Right.
So they wouldn't even have it for the weekend they're here.
No,
So
they'd have documentation saying they bought a sticker.
not if they mail it into us.
Oh, no.
Not under current process.
No, under the new system, they would have
Proposed
something
new
in
system.
a sticky little hand.
If they went into,
Right.
yes, a sheriff, if that legislation passes and they went into a sheriff or dealer,
Right.
they would have to show all that paperwork to them, and then that dealer or sheriff would have to issue that.
Commissioner Jackson, for the record,
Go ahead.
if, just for the sake of argument, I moved from Arizona, and I have a 3-year-old machine, and I'm moving here, I paid sales tax when I bought the machine, and I have a title with my VIN number on there, then that covers all the bases, right?
I believe so. We have our supervisor of this division back here. She can
Go
answer
girl.
that better.
I'll put it over here.
Yeah, Mindy Person with OHB, for the record. Yeah, they pretty much, if you have a title already in your name from out of state and you come in, we don't have to see proof.
Right.
That's what they-
So the only regulation we have to worry about, really, we actually don't need to change regulations as long as somebody has a title. And there is, this is Paul Jackson for the record. The other thing that Peter didn't mention, and it is fairly easy, is that the dealers will be able to do this by mail.
Like, what do you mean?
So in other words, if I call up Mike and say, hey, I'm coming to Reno. I'm going to be here 3 months. I want to get a sticker. Can I do that in advance? If I send him a copy of my title and that I did everything under the new regulations, you would be able to just write out the form and send them that copy.
And you have to keep in mind that this legislation that they're proposing is if these people choose to participate in the program.
Right.
So if we make it where they have all this extra work, are you going to have any dealers or sheriffs that choose to participate in this?
Well, if you're a dealer, if you're a sheriff, you make $5 and you want to be elected. If you're a dealer, the biggest advantage of doing this isn't the $2. The advantage is that somebody comes into your store and they buy a helmet, they buy a spare tire, they get a brake job, that's why they do it.
But if they're doing it through the mail, they wouldn't be there, and these out-of-states wouldn't be voting for that sheriff, so.
I don't know. It's still something that somebody could do. I'm just imagining if people come in for a race, for example, and they don't have to have a sticker on the race course, but they want to come in and have a good time, then they could do that.
Okay. Darren?
This is Commissioner Elmore, a question for DMV. I'm looking at the registration counts, and then I see the 12,000 phone calls and 2,600 mail. So is that in total for 3 years, or is this simply from July through So that's the first question, and then the next question is, it seems awfully high, like we're getting an awfully lot of phone calls. I mean, almost 30% of the new registration or renewal numbers, if you add those together, are calling with a question. What are a third of the people calling about?
Mindy can answer that.
Mindy Person, OHB for the record. A lot of our phone calls are actually transferred back to the DMV, but we don't have a way of tracking which ones are ours and which ones aren't.
Okay.
Because they dial one number pretty much a lot of times because they don't look at the OHB website and push the wrong option.
So this number's not accurate?
Not really.
It's how many calls that these employees have to deal with, but they may not all be about OHV questions.
So then do you track when it is a legitimate OHV question? Do you track, is it what category it might, or what bucket it might fall into?
Not currently, no. We don't.
Commissioner McKay, for the record, do you have any kind of gut feeling of what percentage of those are actually legitimate OHV calls versus what just gets in the DMV mix? And I'm just looking for a rough number. What you?
Normally on a daily basis, they probably answer about 100 phone calls. Maybe about 20 of them possibly are transferred back to the DMV. So.
Okay, so you think 3/4 of them are legitimate OHV issues?
Yeah. And what are the? I mean, that's 80 phone calls a day.
Yeah.
That's not insignificant. So what are people asking about? What?
All kinds of things, to be honest. How to register, how to get a title when they don't ever have a title, since we never did titles.
I got one in my brief.
They ask what roads and trails they could, or not, what public roads they could ride on with large ATVs, since there's no information on that as far as on the website so far. But mainly, how to register and to get the title.
Would it be possible to track those questions for, even a short period of time so that we could see the account and make sure that the right information is on the website so that we might cut down? 80 phone calls is not insignificant.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're getting 80 registrations a day. So
sometimes yesterday we got 116.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the day.
I think that would be an interesting piece of the puzzle to break out.
Yeah, we could definitely start tracking that.
Even if it's 2 weeks, I think it'll give you a good slice of what it is.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks.
And then these statistics, Mindy, these are just for this fiscal year, right?
I'm pretty sure it was just this fiscal year.
Yeah, as I believe. So these are just for this fiscal year, from July.
It's like people there
Yeah.
on the phone all day.
That's a lot.
And Chairman McKay, for the record, just so I make sure I got this right, is as far as out-of-state people, you don't turn anyone down, but they basically have to do it through mail right now.
Right.
And an OHV dealer, they can do the process through them, but right now they don't get their sticker right away.
Right, the sticker's going to be mailed to them, so they'd be gone.
And then the sales tax issue, if they don't have a title, you'd like to see proof that sales tax was, and that's a regulation.
Title or registration, right?
Title or reg.
For registration, all we need is an application for registration and a VIN inspection. That's it.
Okay.
To title it is
Okay. If it's title, you need to either see a title or show sales tax.
Show
okay.
purchase order,
Okay.
Or actually something from taxation.
Okay.
Most of the time.
Okay, great. Commissioner Jerome.
For the record. So if I understand that doing this over the phone to register, how do you do a VIN inspection over the phone?
Yeah.
You don't. Only if somebody's got a title and they send you a copy.
But they don't have a VIN inspection.
No, you have to have a VIN inspection.
Yeah.
Even if you have a
There's one more
title
step.
from another state. If it's never been registered in Nevada or titled in Nevada,
You can't do it.
They better know you pretty good.
You better get an iPhone.
Yeah.
And do your business.
no, it would have to be an original document signed by the dealer or law enforcement.
That's, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
In other words,
When you get an iPhone, you show them the VIN number on your vehicle, and they go, okay.
That's not in current process.
No, it's
it would
not.
take change.
It's a ways off.
Now I'm getting punchy. It's getting late.
Okay.
yeah, who's going to verify that?
All right.
You have to physically look at that VIN.
Well, then you get them to come in your shop and buy tires.
Okay. All right.
The question was, you can't do that over the phone.
Yeah.
So in other words, that defeats. I just wanted to put it out there because it made it sound real easy. And it's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Otherwise, you'd be getting 84 phone calls
For
a day.
the record, yeah, when you go out and do, I actually had to restaff because we're one of the few dealers that actually does it. But there's a lot of dealers that elected not to, which
And that might not change much in
and
the
it
future.
just really is a sad thing because I'm doing their work, and these are brand new sales that they're not doing, which like to visit that statute, but because it is not mandatory, I'm taking the competition's units that they sell brand new, and they say, yeah, just go over to Michael's. And
Well,
they'll do it
can you
for
refuse to do it?
You can, but then it makes you look
Like the bad guy.
Yeah.
But they did.
They charge him $20.
Okay.
But you're still
Um,
staff a person and try to
let's talk later.
Anyway.
Any further questions from DMV? Hearing none, and I wanted to thank your agency in this whole process. They've been a lot of help, and we appreciate it. Item number 16. For discussion and possible action on Congressman Mark Amadei's House Resolution 1484 for discussion and possible action. The Commission will discuss and possibly draft a letter concerning House Resolution 1484, terms for the transfer of federally held lands back to the state of Nevada. There's an attachment titled Bills-114H1484 in PDF form that outlines the language of the Nevada Statehood Enabling Act. The Commission may authorize the chairman to send a letter to Congressman Amadei. Darren, you were kind enough to bring it to my attention. If you'd like to do a little narrative and you might suggest what we'd like to do.
Sure. Commissioner Elmore, for the record. I asked Greg to get this on the agenda. This came onto my radar 2 weeks ago. I was invited for a casual sit-down with some of Congressman Amadei's staff here in Carson City with a number of sportsman conservation groups. It was generally an open discussion forum. They just wanted to hear what we had to say about a myriad of public lands issues. And this popped up on the radar. If you're not aware, just about every western state is currently having some form of discussion in regards to public lands, how much there are of them, and how the states can gain control. I would tell you that the state of Utah is probably the furthest along in this discussion. Nevada certainly is in the midst of our own discussion, but Utah is really the one that is on the forefront of the spear. They actually passed legislation in 2012 urging Congress to hand over all of their public lands to state control. The governor signed it, and basically the federal government said nothing. But now Utah is going the route of the courts and going back to their original statehood documents, which Nevada's are very similar, and going back to the statehood documents and reminding the federal government that it was in the statehood docs that the intent was to hand it over. They did, in fact, hand over public lands in a number of East Coast states long ago, but they have failed to do so out west. So that's where it's moving along, I think, the fastest. But this definitely is something that I think anybody, whether you wear a red tie or a blue tie or no tie at all, needs to be aware of, because it is, once again, the gate key of recreation on public lands is the public lands themselves. And this is a bill from Congressman Amadei in the at the federal level to basically open the same discussion that is going on within the state, but at the federal level. So we were told in the sit-down that it was basically a bill to spur the discussion. I personally, while I understand there may be a need to have a bill to have a discussion, I think it is quite dangerous to test the electric chair by putting somebody in it and pushing the button. So I think that's how I personally see it. I think there's more to come. But if you read through this document, you'll basically see that it's a two-pronged approach in how it would originally be looked at. First and foremost, they want to try and clean up the checkerboard that is the travel corridor along the railroad ground that's along the Humboldt River. And then phase two is basically everything else that they don't get in phase one. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, but I think it was warranted to at least put on everybody's radar that this exists and this dialogue is being had.
Any commissioner comments, questions?
Commissioner Jackson, for the record, I think it should be noted that these lands will still remain public lands. They'll just be managed by the state as opposed to the federal government. So they'll still be public and they'll be open to the public, except decisions about them will be made at our level, at the state level as opposed to the federal level.
I think the answer to that is to be determined. Utah, oil and gas is driving a big component of the Utah deal, right? Utah wants a cut of the oil and gas royalties, and I think it's safe to say that that's a potential issue in every state. But the question then becomes, how does the state pay for it? And as is mentioned in this bill, Congressman Amity's bill, the sale of public lands is an active component. And when how are you going to sell something if you're going to, hey, here's a nice shiny car, but we're going to keep the wheels on it. So you get a machine that can't be driven. So, significant questions to be discussed. I think it's a good discussion. But once again, I'm a bit nervous that we have a bill to have a discussion.
Chairman McKay, for the record, Darren, would you like this just to be something that we can bring back to our attention if there's any moves, or would you like to get a letter just outlining some basic concerns as the process goes forward?
I do think that, Commissioner Elmore, for the record, I think it would be smart to revisit it. I don't know if we formally need a letter of opinion at this time or from the commission. I think we just need to watch it and see how the discussion unfolds.
Okay. Okay.
And whether it truly is a mechanism to take the temperature, as was described, or whether it's a real thing.
You got a fever.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Any other questions by commissioners or public on this?
Yes.
Comments? Yes. Hi, Karen.
Hi. Should I come here?
Why not?
Better. This is an issue I'm really passionately involved in, and I was at the very same Karen Boger, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. I was at the same meeting with Commissioner Elmore. I understand where this is coming from, and I understand the frustrations that my rancher friends and family have with the slowness of federal decisions and things you have to jump through. And I know my concerns as a sportswoman with decisions that are made or not made, or a typical way of management or mismanagement by the feds. But what I have to say about this is that even though, yes, there's a lot of giving voice to the fact, well, these are still going to stay public lands. First of all, the state doesn't have the resources to put in to manage the land. So obviously we're going to have to sell some of them, and some of them I know I'm sure the state would be eager to sell. But secondly, and from my standpoint, more importantly, is that there is not a democratic process for the public to participate in land management decisions. I've been going through that Carson City BLM document, RMP revision document, and I'm just thinking, why am I doing this? And for wildlife, you have to comment on every single resource area, every single action they're proposing to do practically. So it's very complex and very annoying, but I have the opportunity to do that. And if I don't do that, if I don't participate in that process, I don't have a legal handle to complain if I think they made they're agreeing on this wrong action in their final document. So we have a voice, we have a legal handle. There is no such process with the state. And in addition to that, there is no multiple use sustained yield act in the state to guarantee that all different uses of the land are going to have opportunities to use that land. And lastly, no no direction to look at all the resources when you make a decision and analyze the impacts to each of those areas with your decision, what would happen, and then be able to weigh that before making a decision. The state has none of those types of safeguards to the public and to our public lands, which is our commons, for the future.
All right, thank you.
Obviously, I'm passionate about it.
All right.
Thank you. So I guess what I would recommend is at the very least a letter of concern. What I did read just yesterday in the news is that both Congressman Amodei and Hardy are part of a 7-member action group within the Congress on this issue to see how they can facilitate it. Because I know there's some constitutional safeguards at the moment, but there's lots of creative thinking going on to see how it can be facilitated. So a concern, at the very least, I would hope you could do before this gets any more legs in Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Commissioner Jackson. Obviously, Ms. Vogel has some concerns. I think those concerns can be addressed by legislative changes in our state, and I'm sure she can get someone to help write a bill that would answer those concerns. But my main thing with this group is that I don't know if we have consensus to write a law. I mean, and my esteemed colleague, Mr. doesn't agree with me, and I sort of don't agree with him on things, and I don't know if we have consensus among the commission to write a letter and give an opinion. So I would suggest that we don't do anything at the moment until we do build a consensus.
Or we get some more content to comment on.
Well,
Chairman, okay.
Yes. Please. For the record.
For the record, Andrew Zaninovich. I work with Davis Strategies. We represent some conservation groups and sportsmen's groups as well. We are actually at the forefront of this issue. And so if the commission would like, I would just like to offer, I could potentially help with clarifying some of the problems that the various groups have in order to facilitate a discussion with the commission in order to get maybe some clarity or maybe some get some people on the same page or whatever the case may be. So I would just like to offer that out.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thanks. Any further commissioner comment, public comment? Darren?
This is Commissioner Elmore, and once again, my sole intent of bringing this forward and making was to make everybody aware. I don't think that we should do anything right now. I think it's simply an FYI. I can tell you that this came about, and people's whose jobs it is to know of such things weren't necessarily aware. So myself, even trying to stay informed and seeing this come about, I think is worth noting. Just simply to be informed is, I think, the best thing. There's going to be more discussion, a lot of discussion. It's a big topic. It definitely has implications for OHV recreation in the state of Nevada, and that's simply why I brought it forward.
Thank you. Larry?
Yeah, I'm Larry Calkins, Nevada Four-Wheel Drive Association. Speaking only for our association, but thinking that probably the rest of the user groups are probably pretty much on board with the same thoughts. We discussed it on our board of directors. In fact, it is an ongoing agenda item to discuss this, and our position at this particular time is a wait and see. We have federal government oversight now of these lands, and although it's not perfect, it is not an evil as compared to what we think could possibly come out of this when they start selling off public lands. And as the lady said before, there is nothing in state law for all the the safeguards that we have at this particular time through the federal process. So the federal process is not perfect, but it is a process, and until we see something better, we will remain basically opposed.
All right, thank you. Any further comment? Very well. Treasurer's report. Our March in Gary, I'm not sure if you're still online or not there. It's been balancing work.
Yeah, but if you go ahead and give it.
Okay. Our treasurer's report was posted on our website under this meeting. Our March 2015 account activity, we had a beginning balance of $1,077,471.50. We had 3 credits from DMV. On the 3rd of March for $21,352. On the 18th of March, $19,975. On the 23rd of March, $22,678. For total credits of $64,005. We didn't write any checks last month. Our ending balance is $1,141,476.50. That concludes our treasurer's report. Any questions, comments? Okay. Public comment. Before I open it up, I'd like, one thing I missed in my deliberations today is there was a conflict of interest information form and conflict of interest disclosure form. I made a couple copies today at convenience. Read this if you can get them into Kim on email or myself. How about copying both of us? We'll get them into the grants office in Sheila. We need to have any potential conflicts of interest listed here before you can move forward on the scoring process. And if you have no conflicts of interest, then it's not necessary. So
if you have no conflicts, you don't need to get...
Well, actually, no. Thank you for that one more time today. You still have to fill out the form, but you have to put, I have no conflicts of interest to report. So you have to fill out a form anyway, and if you want, I got 4 or 5 of them right here. My example, I got a couple. Please get that filled out. Email Kim and I both, and we'll get them to Sheila and get that little detail taken care of. So having said that, is there any public comment in Carson City? Any public comment in Las Vegas? Okay. Very well. Hearing none, I will close that. Next item is next scheduled meeting. Originally, and I had done some checking, the 20th of May was good for most of us. However, being that we might have to give 30 days notice for our grant regulation workshop, we're going to continue discussions on grant guidelines with the grants office, and Darren's unavailable in that period, I believe, of May 20th. Is that correct? I'd be amiable, if it works for you, to push that to early June, maybe 3rd or 4th or 10th or 11th of June. I'll
have a major conflict the first week, the first Thursday in June.
Okay.
But second, after that.
What I could do is I could send you some dates, and please just get back to me pretty quick so I can also coordinate with our Attorney General, Sheila's office, Charisse, everyone else. But we could kick it to early June maybe, then we might get fuller participation, and we can also take care of some other items at the same time. So any other, Darren?
Do we know when we will be receiving the final recommendations from the Office of Criminal Justice for those awards?
She had committed before May 15th. So if we go there, you'll have fully 2-3 weeks there to look at that.
So that will be an agenda item on this next meeting. Will be.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, and just for everyone's information, the law award recommendations, the grant guidebook, guidelines, draft regulations stuff. We're also going to talk a little bit about the old grant applicant, that process, and just have a public discussion there of how we disposed of it. And we'll probably have one or two other items. And I will endeavor to get you guys a draft agenda a couple weeks before we even shoot with the final one. Commissioner Johnson.
Is there any way that we could have a phone meeting for a single agenda item during the legislative changes?
If it finally gels a little bit and there's something that's good to discuss.
If we set one for, say, 10 days from now, the worst that can happen is we have to cancel it. But at least if we set a meeting, then we can, if there's some final things that we have to make decisions on. We may have to make a decision on whether we go for $5 late fee or no late fee, or whether we push that envelope or not. And I think either the full commission or at least all the commissioners who are interested should be able to vote on that. And that's just one issue. I can foresee of at least half a dozen issues coming up. And I think I would feel better if the commission was at least aware of them and then maybe could vote on them.
All right, let me talk with Raylene and figure out a little system that'll work. And, because a month's a ways away not to have anything, so we may want to pre-schedule a couple things in there so if that envelope's there, we can act on it.
Sure.
Okay.
And they can be phone meetings.
No, we have to have a physical location. We have to have one physical location.
Yeah, which we could do here or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
You just sit in an office somewhere at the library.
Well, I have to have room for people to sit.
He knows
the library.
Yeah.
The library works.
All right. Thank you for that suggestion. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, I asked for no grab there, so.
Can I say one quick thing?
Yes, you may.
I just wanted to thank you all for your efforts on AB 217 in particular. And that's on behalf of all of our leaders, I'm sure. It really makes me proud of how you stepped up and made sure we can not only keep this program, but make it better.
Thank you. Thank you. Very well.
Mr. Elmore will make a motion to adjourn.
A second? Moved and seconded. Any objections? All those in favor? All right. All right, motion passes. Thank you for your time, everyone.